Perfect. City of Valley Center Budget Presentation Workshop will now come to order. Roll call.
Mayor Cicerillo.
Here.
Councilmember Stamm.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Colbert.
Here.
Perfect. Mr. Clark, who's leading off? I guess it would be Mr. Eggleston since he just jumped to his feet.
It will be, Mayor. Now he has the power.
Uh-oh.
Off the point.
Means I gotta remember how you figure out how to use that
And
thing.
this here is laser pointer. So if you want to get him right there, there you go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So looks like I'm first. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Over the next few slides, we'll be touching on some items being worked on now, some to come, and a few strategies for 2023. There will be 2 budget requests for next year as well. So what is public works? Well, the American Public Works Association defines public works as the following. Public works is a combination of physical assets, management practices, policies, and personnel necessary for government to provide and sustain various services essential to the welfare and acceptable quality of life for its citizens. At the current time, the Valley Center Public Works Department is comprised of 4 separate divisions: streets, stormwater, water, and wastewater or sewer, if you will. However, these things could not be accomplished without the cooperative effort of all departments of the city. Hit the right button. So we'll touch on a few projects for the streets division. One major project for this year would be the Ford or 77th Street full depth replacement from the floodway to Broadway in a cooperative effort with Park City and Sedgwick County. Great to announce again that this was approved for all concrete surface. It will significantly increase the life of this road. Along with the road replacement, there will be a new water main installed to just west of Broadway and drainage improvements along the project. This project is tentatively scheduled to begin summer of '22. Another project that will be coming this year will be a 2-inch mill and overlay to the following. Goff Road from Meridian west to Meadow from North Interurban to Fieldstone from Meadow to Goff, and North Interurban from 5th Street to Meadow. This will include repainting of all pavement striping. These amounts on this project had to be reduced due to rising material costs and volatility and budget constraints. We recently learned from a study that the optimal time to reseal a recently installed or resurfaced road is 3 to 5 years. That puts 2023 at just the right time to reseal 85th Street that we did in 2019. So we are researching methods for this for 2023, along with some valley gutter and curb repair. Depending on the volatility of material prices, we may look at sealing Sheridan as well. A few of the daily responsibilities of the streets division. They are responsible for stormwater compliance and maintenance. This, along with mowing and general maintenance of the city's right-of-ways, ditches, and flood controls. There is patching and pothole repair and various other responsibilities. Considering that most of our right-of-way mowing is slope mowing, we do feel that investing in another slope-rated mower would be the safest option. The Cub Cadet Pro Z 972 model that was purchased in September of 2020 provides superior stability on slopes up to 25 degrees. This division is also responsible for cleaning and maintenance of the city's stormwater catch basins, outfalls, and mechanical pump stations, as well as compiling of compliance data and reporting on our NPDES permit. The stormwater inspections of the construction sites are shared amongst the streets employees as well. These services, along with snow and ice removal during the winter months. We will be requesting a $22,000 increase in the equipment line item of the streets budget for 2023 to replace our 2009 Hustler ATC mower. Water Division. 2022 current project, our water tower refinishing project, which is currently underway. This includes the sandblasting the interior to base metal, coat with an interior epoxy coating, paint the outside of the tower with urethane, and seal with the highest grade of finish for extended coating life. Finish with a redesigned and up-to-date logo, which is shown here. Some of the daily tasks for this division are meter reads, leak checks, spot repairs, water quality checks, and assigning the other division and assisting the other divisions when needed. We researched and purchased a device that helps to make the process of collecting water usage history much easier and more accurate. This device actually pulls the history straight from the meter instead of the receiving device. So it helps in that process. The department is also working to forecast and supply itself with meters and supplies in anticipation of the upcoming development projects and all the extra housing coming along. In an effort to get in front of the ever increasing supply chain issues amongst many industries. There are no budget requests for water for 2023. Wastewater or sewer division, 2022, wastewater treatment plant aeration basin. The city has entered into an agreement with SEH Engineering to evaluate and write a technical memorandum for the possible construction of a new aeration basin. Our current basin is approximately 50 years old and has a few current mechanical issues, as we discussed earlier this year. It is time to renew the city's contract for sewer line cleaning and televising. The department is writing an RFP for these services now to not only include cleaning, but also suggested point repairs and root removal and treatment to mitigate the possibility of surprise replacement of some lines. The city has entered into an agreement for 1 point repair and lining of approximately 750 feet of 10-inch clay sewer line that had several breaks in it. That is currently underway. An above-ground diesel tank was installed to service the generator at the wastewater treatment plant to replace the underground tank. This would significantly reduce the potential environmental impact in the case of a leak, as well as all the extra time and effort spent on compliance, testing, checking of that underground tank. The department will be changing our service provider that supplies and delivers off-road diesel fuel at a significant savings from delivery charges that we've been being charged for every single delivery to each generator. We are requesting to increase the equipment maintenance line item by $23,000 to accommodate bulb replacement and maintenance for the UV disinfection equipment installed during phase 3 of the plant upgrade. That was something we discussed, I believe, earlier this year. Bulb replacements for the UV equipment. To wrap some of this up, it's a good time to mention some noteworthy items for these departments. We are currently investigating moving to a different GIS system solution that would provide us with the ability to better manage the valuable assets in our city. This solution would provide us with a much better ability to advertise upcoming projects, allows individual applications to be built on top of our data for various functions. To name a few, building inspections, planning and zoning, parks, pavement management, and many others. This new system offers a great deal of options not possible with our current GIS provider. There will be more to come later this summer. A few other noteworthy items to mention. The streets division began hauling their own sand, salt, and asphalt cold mix this year at a significant savings to the city. Many of those items, when you haul it, you pay the same to haul it as you do to buy it. The entire Public Works team did an outstanding job this year with snow removal and received several compliments on streets that have not been plowed in quite some time. Our very own Katie Leckner led the charge on the writing of a sidewalk incentive program that was passed. As mentioned in an earlier meeting, Javin Baker passed his level 4 water operator exam. This is the highest level water certification for the state of Kansas. KDHE placed the city on a reduced lead and copper reporting schedule from annual to triannual due to not having an exceedance for over 3 years. KDHE gave the city an outstanding review during our wastewater permit inspection. This includes the plant and lift stations, record keeping, physical upkeep, maintenance, and general appearance. We have enrolled 3 employees in the new KRWA apprenticeship program. This program provides on-the-job and classroom training to operators over a 2-year program. We are one of few cities to be involved in this at this time. That concludes my budget presentation for this year, and I'll stand for questions.
Can you just give me a little more on the GIS? What are we using now? Are we not using the counties?
So we use what's called like a SAMS GIS, and it's a different format. It's not actually ArcGIS.
Okay,
And so this new system would be built on top of ArcGIS Online,
okay,
which is it's newer. You used to have to maintain your own server in-house. This will all be online. We'll own the licenses. It just gives us much more flexibility, and this current company is able to actually build individual apps, create layers. It allows us to actually add additions to our assets as they're being put in, shoot points, add lines, input depths.
okay, perfect. Councilmember Kerstetter.
Would you mind repeating your 2 line items? That's the 22,000 and 23,000 that you're,
Yeah, the
20.
22,000 would be for mower purchase, and that would be in the capital outlay equipment line item for streets
okay,
to replace a 13-year-old mower that we've been limping along. And then the 23,000 is for the new UV system for an annual maintenance and bulb replacement.
new what?
Ultraviolet
Oh,
disinfection system. My apologies. sir.
For the wastewater?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For the very last stage before the effluent.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Here's a guy that always wants a lot of money.
Yeah,
Dapper Ryan.
right. Good evening, Mayor Cicerella, members of City Council. It is my honor to address you tonight and provide a brief overview of the Community Development Department's proposed budget for 2023. The department's mission statement is to promote a clean and attractive community in which residents and businesses thrive through strategic quality of place and economic development activities and initiatives. My staff and I work proactively on a daily basis to serve our clientele with the highest level of customer service, whether it be a building or a zoning permit, a floodplain question, nuisance issue, or any other question or concern. We strive to ensure that the residents and businesses in Valley Center know that we care and have their best interests at heart. We continue to see growth take place in our community. Thus far in 2022, construction on nearly 10 new single-family homes has started in Valley Center. Construction on several multifamily residential projects are either well underway or will begin in the coming months, and we are closing in on starting construction on 3 new residential subdivisions with at least 2 more now on the horizon. Construction of the new Dinger's Roofing office building at the southwest corner of 69th and Meridian will begin soon, and Builders First Source will have a grand opening celebration later this month. My office continues to receive a steady stream of inquiries and applications regarding the city's housing incentive program. Bill Andrews, our code enforcement officer and residential building inspector, is completing the last 2 of 4 required commercial building inspector certifications this year, which will allow the city to conduct all commercial building inspections beginning in 2023. This will keep additional funds here instead of sending service payments to Sedgwick County. Already in 2022, the city has paid Sedgwick County nearly $4,000 for commercial construction inspections. As you know, Mr. Andrews acquired all his residential building inspector certifications, and we began completing all residential building project inspections in January 2020. The continual increase in residential and commercial developments will not only add to the assessed value of our community, but also lead to further population growth and the need to ensure that we continue to provide exceptional services across the board. With the passage of the city's strategic plan in 2021, city departments once again align our fiscal policy to focus on outcome-based budgeting centered on the goals outlined in the plan. We continually look for ways to improve our services to the community and become more efficient with the resources we have in our possession. Daily department staff will work on projects that are directly connected to the goals put forth in the current strategic plan. The first budget highlight tonight is centered on department personnel. With the forthcoming influx of new residential building construction, our building inspector, Bill Andrews, will soon find himself inundated with new building inspections, which we're very excited about. At the same time, the city's Public Works Department finds itself at times overwhelmed with utility locate requests and inspections on their issued permits, including right-of-way, water, and sewer projects. To assist Mr. Andrews and the city's Public Works Department, as part of this department's 2023 budget, I am requesting one new full-time employee. This staff person will assist Mr. Andrews with code enforcement issues, as well as assist the Public Works Department by completing utility locate requests and conducting right-of-way, sewer, and water project inspections. Funding for this new position will come from both the general fund and enterprise funds. At this time, the estimated annual starting salary for this position is between $35,000 and $38,000, depending on the results of a salary study currently being conducted through Assistant City Administrator Smith's office. This number may need to be adjusted to be competitive in the current labor market. The second budget highlight tonight is Main Street. The requested funding amount is $10,000, and this aligns with Main Street revitalization being a critical area of focus for the community. As you know, Main Street Valley Center was recently selected to receive designation as a Kansas Main Street community. This designation will provide training and additional resources to our local Main Street organization and help further the work of revitalizing our historical downtown corridor. An exciting project that our Main Street group is working on this year is creating a new downtown farmers market. So stay tuned for more information on this project. As part of our designation as a Kansas Main Street community, the Kansas Main Street program provides registrations for local Main Street communities to send representatives to the annual Main Street Conference. The 2023 conference will be held in Boston, and I plan on attending and representing Main Street Valley Center. The department is asking for an increase in the department's travel budget to assist in covering travel expenses for this three-day conference. The last area I'd like to highlight this evening is the Economic Development Resources Fund. The requested funding amount for 2023 is $20,000. In order to encourage additional development, resources need to be devoted to the continued marketing of the community, identifying and supporting incentives for growth, and collaborating with other organizations. Our booth fee to participate in the annual WABA Home Show comes from this fund. Historically, money from this fund has also been utilized by City Council to financially assist the annual Fall Festival event sponsored by our Chamber of Commerce and provide donations to organizations such as our local PBS station and the Valley Center Mud Daubers baseball team. In closing, I would like to thank each of you for your continued support. It really has been an honor and a pleasure to work with the council over the past 6.5 years, and I look forward to many more years of positive collaboration and exciting growth. At this time, I stand ready to answer any questions you may have regarding the department and our proposed 2023 budget. Thank you.
Was it just me or did he even breathe through that?
I heard.
Thanks. Every time you do it, you do that, and it's just funny. Councilmember Kerstetter has a question
No, go for it.
before I. No?
You go first.
I'm supposed to let the council.
Oh, okay. All right. So on your requests,
Yes,
the only new item is the new hire,
correct.
and then the other ones are fund increases.
So the only fund increase would be the travel fund,
Okay.
and then the new department staff. Those would be the only increases as to what it has been historically in the past.
So, okay, the economic development is
Yep.
20.
Yes,
That's what it's been.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Should we increase that?
Speaking of economical development, that is exactly where I was going to go with that. I was thinking maybe an additional 10,000 to that account because it's not just the things he mentioned that come out of that. We kind of tap that for a lot of things. I mean, we get it for like if we do any advertising type stuff, that all comes out of that. So
Valley Center, I mean,
yeah, right. All that kind of stuff we pile a lot into that category. So my thought was an additional 10,000, but that's just my thought. I'm the mayor. I'm not the counselor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
So, okay, so that's an okay number for me, but can we afford it? If we increase that to 30,000 or 35 or whatever it would be.
Yeah, and so we can review, and so this is really, the different departments come in and kind of giving a quick overview and kind of some highlights that are going to be upcoming, and then what happens. Matt will explain. Matt Cantor, City Treasurer, will explain later kind of next steps and process. But now it's just time for the council to have these conversations and to say, hey, us as the governing body, I think you should maybe add here, maybe let's wait a year on this, and then we go back and really dive into the nuts and bolts of things, and then bring it back the actual budget.
Okay.
I did want to mention real quick on that new position that is going to be stormwater as well, right, Rodney? And so we're actually going to be having quite a few different, kind of not issues, but a lot of different functionalities and addressing multiple areas that our personnel right now are kind of spread thin. So kind of create one person that would handle quite a few of these types of things. So it does include stormwater. I know that wasn't mentioned, so I want to make sure that
I did
was
mention
clear.
that.
So-
I did state general fund and enterprise fund.
Oh, yeah, right.
He did, I wrote it down.
So follow up on that.
Mhm.
As somebody that has been employed, who would be the responsible department head for that person, since that person's being split between multiple departments?
And we currently split some other departments, other employees as well. So this wouldn't be anything new to us. But that person would report directly under Mr. Schrapp.
Okay.
Since the majority of it will be a lot of it dealing with new developments, with the building side, really work with Mr. Andrews. Now, if that person, reports directly to Mr. Andrews, or I don't know the
That's
structure yet.
that's really what I meant. What department?
It'll be
What department would I shouldn't have said person? I should have said department. Okay,
community development.
go ahead. Finish. You have
My question piggybacks off the new employee. My hesitancy with this would be when there's not enough inspections for Mr. Andrews. What would this person do? I don't want to have to lay him off in a year or two. You know what I'm saying?
And I think in consulting with Public Works, I don't think that's going to be a problem between
Okay.
addressing, obviously nuisance issues are more of that peak season is in the spring and summer. But with what this person would be doing in terms of assisting Public Works with the utility locates and their various permit inspections, no one is afraid that this person's going to be twiddling their thumbs.
Right.
And especially with the locate. So remember,
Yeah.
all of our road projects we have coming up, we have to locate all of our own city infrastructure mains. We have to refresh those every, so often, 10 days, is it? Every so often as well. We have to refresh them every 10 days. So throughout a course of a construction project, that person's going to be out there constantly just making sure that those lines are nice and freshly marked. And so, yes, this person or individual will definitely be busy.
And the reason I asked that is the building increase in construction. That's not those developments are going to be done, and then what happens after that? So that you answered the question. Still hesitant, but that's another story.
It will take many years for all those lots to be developed, be sold. When you look at the build out, that's going to be many years for the whole build out.
Councilmember Anderson.
Follow up on more of a comment. I like the proactive aspect of adding money to our economic development budget now, rather than trying to scramble and find money when we have an issue, or not an issue, an opportunity, and then trying to find money in different places. I'd rather put that in the budget set aside now. I'm actually going to take a different approach than Mr. Kerstetter is. Do we have an outlook on the amount of inspections we're going to be doing? Is one inspector going to be enough for the amount of building? And I'm not necessarily in 2023, but in 24, 25. Do we know how many inspections we can do a day? How many lots we're going to be having online projected? Have we done any projections of that sort? Because coming from a construction background,
With the Mr. Smith has done some projections with the TIF district, but that's specifically for the TIF district, doesn't include the other two developments. I would say, let's look at what happens in 2023 and then perhaps visit that in 2024 or 2025. Currently, Mr. Andrews could potentially do, I think, 5-6 inspections a day. But again, obviously not everyone's going to be building at the exact same time.
Right.
Inspections happen at different times. I think right now we're optimistic that obviously, yes, we will be able to handle what's coming online. But again, it depends on what the construction season looks like.
Sure. And
And of course, between the subdivisions, I mean, we're gonna probably average, anywhere from potentially, 50 to 75, new residential homes, single family homes, in the developments we have coming up right now.
okay.
Is of course, it depends upon how those developers continue to proceed forward. That's just the projected current developers, building themselves. And so if they decide to sell, 15, 20 lots at a time, well, then of course that number is going to increase depending upon the construction companies, what they have in the hopper as far as their new builds. But typically a crew will do, 25 to 30 homes a year in the development of just a single builder.
Is it possible to potentially train that new position to in the future have the training to be able to do inspections, to have a backup?
I don't see why not. Absolutely.
I think that would be
Yeah.
a quality investment.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand Dale's concern of having peaks and valleys of stuff, but at the same time, during that boom time, I don't want it to be the city's issue that these builders are being held up
Absolutely.
building
Yep.
quality homes. And I've been part of that in Kansas City when I built homes for companies, and that was always an issue is scheduling your inspectors. And right now it's not an issue, but I just want to make sure there's nothing on our end that's going to hold up anything. So just
And
looking down the line at 24, 25, maybe.
Absolutely agree that this would definitely, this new staff person could definitely, especially since Bill has completed his residential, he's there to serve as a mentor to this new person and absolutely have them work on getting their ICC certifications. Definitely.
Thank you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who's next? Oh, that's right. This is the guy that always wants money.
Show me the money. Be careful. He keeps the AC going in here.
That's true.
What's that?
I said, be careful. He keeps the AC going in here.
Right, that's right. That's right. Which one's forward and reverse? Oh, okay. Hey, there we are. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to present our 2023 Parks and Public Buildings budget presentation for this year. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who we are and what we do, what we're responsible for, some of the departmental issues we're facing, and possible solutions, as well as some of our purchases and projects that we're looking to make in this 2023 year. So without further ado, I'm going to get going here. And these are generally the broad areas of what we're responsible for: park infrastructure, landscape and site amenity maintenance, ped bike areas, improvements to building infrastructure, contractor oversight. I mean, we wear a lot of hats. You can get the gist there from what that shows there. We wear a lot of hats in our department, and we cover a lot of ground. So essentially, we are a department that is responsible for two primary areas: parks and then public buildings. We're one team, and we come together and work hard together as a group, and I'm very proud of my team. As I've mentioned in meetings in the past, they do a great job. But all those areas of responsibility, all those parks and buildings, they come together, and it equates to 7 park properties, which is about 51 acres, 4 public buildings, which accounts for about 7 acres of areas that we take care of, the cemetery, 5 of the 15 acres that's developed, we take care of that. And we take care of 2 city fishing ponds. So, and the swimming pool. All combined, we have approximately 72 acres of properties, just to kind of put things in perspective. So, of that 72, about 35 and a third are mowed acres. So that is where we're at with what we take care of. So I brought this slide in before I talk a little bit more about what we do and some of the responsibilities, because it has to do with what we do. I mean, like some of the other departments are experiencing, and businesses in the recent years, we've got a staffing deficit. We have had for some years, and we're working through that. This really affects us, through different ways, hiring and retaining seasonal and qualified seasonal groundskeepers, specifically for the mowing and landscape area is where we have that deficit. Every year we hire or try to hire an average of 2.5, seasonal positions. That equates anywhere from 2 to 4 seasonals throughout the year. And in recent years, it's just not worked. I've talked at different times throughout the course of the last couple of years where we've had problems with this hiring and retaining, and it's a problem for us. And that's where we struggle. We have one full-timer that works in with that mowing and landscape operations, generally speaking. And in a perfect setting, that's what it would take to mow and maintain the landscapes of that 35 acres that I discussed that we take care of, as well as around, it includes around the buildings and such too. So, these are just some of the pressures that it adds to the staff when we don't have a full staff, when we don't have, things aren't working like they should. Prior to COVID, and I'm not blaming it on that, but prior to that, it seemed like around 2019, things just dropped off with the ability to hire and retain seasonal staff. We've done tried a lot of different things. Christy has worked with me diligently on, going through Indeed and making opportunity, trying to find and retain staff. And we've gone through a lot of applicants and a lot of employees, but I don't want to hang up on that all night. I just wanted to kind of paint that picture that, it creates a lot of scenarios. It also creates a little bit of a backlog on work when we don't have enough staff. And then, we end up relying more on contractors. So we have been reviewing these opportunities for how we can better our processes and our procedures and, opportunities that we have here with staff. And, we ask a lot of our staff, as I mentioned, we stretch them really thin. But in order to maintain services, at least at a similar and even possibly better level, we need to make some adjustments within our staffing. And where we're going with this is, I'll come back to that in just a second, but that thought with what we need to do helps paint the picture here with this slide is we maintain 23 acres per those 3.5 full-time equivalents during the summer. That's our seasonals and our one full-time person combined. But out of our 5, that's what we have designated towards that. So, and again, this is the properties that we maintain, kind of a breakdown of warm season and cool season grasses we mow and take care of. That's that 35 acres that I talked about. Not to get hung up on numbers, but just to kind of paint that picture once again. So where we're at is trying to address the revolving problem of hiring and retaining qualified seasonal staff to help with mowing and landscape operations. Our solution moving forward, we believe, is to hire 2 full-time employees. We've ran some numbers. We've thought this through quite a bit. I've worked with Barry and Brent and Matt during our budget pre-budget meetings and stuff. And our solution for this is looking at 2 full-time employees, possibly hiring 1 even towards the end of this year and 1 in 2023. And I'll get to kind of some of the specifics with that here in a minute. But how we do this is doing this, maintaining a neutral budget change is pretty amazing. We would need to bring in some of our contracted services back in-house and utilize those monies coupled with our monies from what we budget for seasonal salaries. And we would have enough essentially to not change anything within the budget, just reallocate and be able to hire full-time staff in place of the seasonals and in place of some of that work that the contractors have done. here is sort of a breakdown of what we were looking at. In those numbers that I was talking about, where we would utilize seasonal salaries, $35,000 there. We would utilize a portion of our custodial services money. We would utilize a portion of our herbicide and fertilizer services that Dragonfly Lawn and Tree does for us, 12,000 there. And, trim our contract, bring our contract mowing back in-house with hiring these people. We would have approximately $80,000 to be able to do this and hire 2 full-time people. Running the numbers, this works for us. So those staff would essentially take on some of those portion of those contracted services that used to be contracted out. We would bring those in-house. We would have those numbers, the available hours available to our staff or to our department to be able to help assist with the mowing and landscape operations and come together and make it essentially work a lot better and have good, reliable, full-time staff as opposed to what we've experienced in the recent past with seasonals and, high cost of contractors and so. So that's really where we believe the gain is going to be, is being able to bring those people in and utilize them, have more available hours to us to complete some of those tasks that we're not getting done on the mowing and landscape side. And then again, handle some of the in-house work that was being handle in-house some of the work that had been being contracted out in those areas. We're not cutting those services completely because those services like custodial and our Dragonfly folks that do herbicide and fertilizer type services, they do some specific specialized items for us that we need to maintain that we don't necessarily have the expertise in at this time. So moving forward, again, I touched a little bit on timing of this. We would look at potentially, we have monies in our budget that we can move around through savings, not utilizing seasonals. The timing hasn't been quite worked out, other than we know it would be later in this year, later in the summer or early fall, potentially, as to when we could bring that first person on. We would then in turn bring in some of our custodial work to help offset that and do away with utilizing a full services from Janiking as an example. So secondly, then in January, that's when we would implement that second full-time employee, and that full-time employee that would start in January, hopefully would be geared up. We would have them scheduled to start taking on some of our lawn and landscape things, and as well as the herbicide and fertilizing work that we've been currently contracting out. Timing fits right with that. So I'll give you kind of a quick example. I mean, we just looking at the gain to help kind of paint the picture. Our custodial services, if we ballparked an average of 75 hours a month that they put in, and we hired 2 full-time people, we know we would have approximately 320 hours of staff time per month available to us to use and put towards all those tasks that we need to work towards and take on in-house. So just kind of as an example. Switching gears, we're moving forward with different our strategic goals and our budget focus for our projects and our equipment purchases. These are in line with quality of place and our city services and infrastructure goals and strategic plans. So, equipment that we've made a request for is to replace 3 AC units here at City Hall, purchase some lawn and herbicide and fertilizer equipment, which would be needed as a kind of a one-time purchase to help bring some of that contracted work in-house. We would need a piece of equipment that would help with that. And lastly, one of the projects that we were going to co-op with Public Works on is purchase of a bucket implement that goes on our skid steer called a grapple bucket, and be able to split that cost with them. Those were some of the items that we were looking at. On the heating and air units, those are planned replacements according to our schedule, as well as, well, that's it for that one. Sorry. And then as far as projects, we're looking at a project, a phased project to do some renovations at McLaughlin Park. This is kind of phase one. We're looking at several different things over the course of long haul, but I just wanted to key in on what we're looking at in the short term. We've got some irrigation well maintenance that we would do on our water well up there. It has a lot of iron and rust. It has a lot of the same similar problems as to what we've heard Mr. Eggleston talk about with the water wells that supply raw water to Wichita. We would be utilizing, hope to piggyback on the same contractor that he would use for his maintenance services. And gain some economies of scale there, but we did receive one quote just to get a budget number and servicing ours well and irrigation lines up there at McLaughlin Park. So that would really help improve and clean up that well. It makes the system just run more efficiently. Pump and motor in good shape and without the well. Long story short. The other part of the project that we're looking at is waterfall rehab and landscaping. What that generally entails is, if you've been up to McLaughlin Park, you know that there's the big pond and then there is a smaller waterfall pond up top. And that smaller waterfall pond spills it over the rocks and comes down into the big one. That small waterfall pond has a liner in it, and that liner has been patched and repaired. It's long story short, it's a lot of maintenance involved with that, and it's something that we believe we've been looking at for quite some time. And one of the possible solutions that we're looking at is removing that waterfall pond altogether and bringing in a concrete rectangular waterfall vault box that would essentially take the place of the pond and create the flow over the rocks. It would, come equipped with a manhole cover for easy clean out and back trailering that out. And then we would like to landscape that area up where the current pond is, fill that all in, build it all up, re-landscape it, add a little patio and a walk ramp up there, or a wheelchair accessible ramp up there to the top, and have a kind of a pretty area, a sitting area, a viewing area overlooking the pond. And some of this came about, some of the idea for redoing this area came about with recent vandalism, regular routine vandalism, articles of clothing that get found up there in that area. Just the hidey holes that the overgrown landscape has sort of created. And we wanted to work to try to clean that up, open that up, make it a little bit safer and more inviting for the public to use. And then lastly, updates to the disc golf baskets, bringing in new signage, park benches, etc. We'd like to do that, but that would be done out of our special park and rec fund, not necessarily out of our budget, but we wanted to include it and show it as part of one of the first phases that we'd like to do. There currently is money in there. Even this year, we've talked with the staff that if we have time this year, we might be able to even work on the disc golf baskets as part of moving forward with that first phase. Other than that, that's all I have for our 2023 budget. I would certainly stand for any questions, entertain anything you might have.
Councilmember Anderson.
You mentioned pulling some of the current janitorial services we have contracted out back in-house.
Yes.
I assume you're going to leave some of the after-hours cleaning as a contracted. Okay.
Yes. Some of and not 100% of the details have been worked out in this regard, but for, as it stands right now, the community center is a good example of that. That's one building that we feel, with all the rentals and all the public use, and it runs later in the evening, that one would really make sense to leave under a contractor's purview because of routine use and
Okay.
the necessity to have a crew in there on a regular routine basis.
Second question I had was, you were asking, excuse me, you're asking to add 2 FTEs And I assume we have to approve that, even though you're not changing your budget request,
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
And with regard to the one I talked about in 2022 even, that would certainly be something that we would be bringing back to you guys for approval. That's not for tonight. That's, that's not a request for tonight. We would certainly bring that back at that time.
I like the approach to try to solve the problem because I know you've continually been beating your head against the wall trying to fill those part-time positions and have not had luck for a lot of the years that I've been up here. So, and it hasn't gotten any better. So I like the creative approach trying to solve those problems.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, what I was going to ask is, Ben has already asked, but I'm going to follow up with it. Do you feel comfortable just having 2 people and not increasing, say, to 3 or 4 people for the next 2 years?
I think that's a crystal ball question, Councilmember Colbert. I would love to have more staff than that, but I want to make sure that we're right sizing the department as we move forward and evaluate things as we see how this unfolds. There's a lot of moving parts to the discussion we've had here tonight that and staff haven't got fully fleshed out that are going to be happening as we move through this. And we know that 2 is going to be very helpful. But as we start to add homes, as we start to increase park property, if we go forward with this 62 acres, we know that over time, there's going to be a necessity a little bit later down the road to consider that again. We don't know what that park is going to entail at this point. We have some concepts, we have some ideas, but we know that park property could feed into the necessity for more people even beyond the 2 that we're talking about tonight.
Council, we're running out of time. We still have another department to go through. So at this point, I'm going to, there it goes. The question disappeared. Thank you, Mr. Owens. I do want to just add to his comment, or Councilmember Anderson's comments. It's as long as I've been on this council, his part-time help has been the biggest nightmare he's had to dealt with. So yeah, if we can eliminate that, I think it'd be great because that's why we have contractors, because he can't eliminate that issue. So, hello, Chief.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. Mine will be fairly short and sweet unless you have a lot of questions. Maybe I'll save some time for questions for if you had more for Neil. This year, I gave up some of my time for him as well. This year, I'm not focusing on equipment like we have in the past. We're focusing more on personnel. This year, for next year, we'll be requesting 2 additional full-time firefighters. Our call load's up on the fire side. The part-time firefighters, they stay busy with their current full-time jobs. They're not always available. We're trying to avoid burnout with the full-time employees that we do have. And then adding that additional person per shift would also then allow us to respond immediately on a structure fire. Because the NFPA guidelines that we follow say, we have to have a supervisor in the seat, in the front seat, and we also have to have 3 firefighters to take an engine out on a structure fire. So that's what we're focusing on mostly. We'll be on the fire side and asking for 2 additional. In case that question comes up later, no, I don't think that's enough, but that's all we can handle right now while we're in the current building. We're already busting at the seams. And so we'll probably ask for more in the future. On the police side, we're not asking for any right now, but as the new developments open up, we're going to have to visit that in the future because the call load is going to continue to increase, and we're going to need additional personnel on that side as well. The other thing we're going to do while I'm on the staffing is this year we're looking, I'll be talking with administration and looking at restructuring both sides of the department and maybe better utilizing the personnel that we have in various positions. I'm not asking for equipment this year because thanks to administration and council, we've been fairly aggressive the last 2 or 3 years. And these are just some of the things that we've been able to accomplish or we're in the process of. KPNF was a big one this year. We were able to get ballistic helmets and shields last year, which were important for officer safety. The Motorola radios are on order for both police and fire. That's probably a 5 to 6 month lead time, by the way. Axon cameras, body cameras, new car cameras, those are also on order. We just received our body cameras in the mail today. I was excited about that. I have no idea on the timeline yet for the car cameras. I think the big holdup will be installation. The bottom right corner there, that's kind of for our new CAD and RMS coming, as well as our e-tickets. The e-tickets, we've had a couple of meetings already. I've got another meeting scheduled in a week and a half. We're in the process of building those and getting that going. And then, of course, the big one that you just approved last council meeting was the new engine purchase. With that, as promised, short and sweet, I'll stand for any questions.
Council? It should be no surprise that he's asking for more firefighters. We've actually had this discussion in the past already, just in normal council meetings, that we're going to need to increase the size of that. And, wait, there may be some late breaking update here.
I was going to mention this later in my staff reports, but City Administrator Clark asked me to mention now. So on the 21st, next council meeting, I did invite the interim director for Sedgwick County EMS with some of the complaints we've had. One of them, Mr. Edwards, had came in and addressed the council. And then Mr. Clark and I had another complaint more recently. So I've had a couple of conversations with EMS, and I invited them to come out, and he's going to kind of give an update to council on where they're at and what their plan is as they move forward.
Councilmember Bass.
So we're looking to expand 2 additional on the fire side. Is that what how many, I know you didn't say, but how many do you think we need right now?
Eventually, and probably,
Right now.
oh, right now, two will help us right now.
How many do you need right now?
Right now, 2. I don't have room for any more. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to come up to the station, and I invite you to do that anytime you would like, and I'll give you a tour. Our old courtroom, I transitioned that into a training room. Both police and fire utilize that. And I've added 2 additional workspaces in there just to help create more room and let people spread out a little bit. So we don't have the room for more than 2.
And I haven't been up there, but I'll take a look on that.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir. Anybody have any follow-up questions for Mr. Owens? We can give him a couple more minutes if you need to. Oh, that's right. The money guy, yeah.
Just for a second. I don't have a lot to say, but it has occurred to me that we could probably review our budget calendar
You don't have a.
just so that you can get, and I know this is the first budget cycle for Councilman Bass. So just so we have kind of an idea, I can show you. I don't know what I did to the computer.
You didn't do
I'll just
anything.
talk.
You didn't do anything.
Did you click stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so we're on June 7th right now. If you were looking at the budget calendar up there as planned, it would say department presentations from the department heads. Thank you guys for all of your hard work. So those are all the requests from the individual departments, and then we will come back on the 21st with our first draft of the budget. So that tonight is kind of hear everything that everybody has to say. We're kind of observing your temperature, seeing what you guys think, and then we'll put together some ideas and some things and bring them back to you guys and go from there as far as making decisions, and you guys can decide. And then additionally, we did want to mention that the county is partnering and having a joint budget meeting with us. I'm going to try and take it over.
Beth said it's not letting you do.
Yes. So let's talk budgets next Monday, the 13th at 6 p.m. at the community building. So if you guys, we would love to have a great turnout. We would love to have city representation. So if anybody is able to make it, please come. Have any questions for me?
Nope.
Great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
I got one.
Go ahead, Councilmember
If we
Kerstetter.
have questions from now until our next meeting, we can email.
Yep, yeah, please email them to me, and then we'll make sure to get them responded in a timely manner. And if any of you would like to set up any meetings or one-on-one or have further questions, as we go through this process, I know that Mr. Barry Smith, Mr. Kane, and I would love to sit down with anybody as groups, of course, not having any quorum issues, but we sure can set up meetings to talk more in depth individually.
Councilmember Wilson.
Short request, could we have this PowerPoint sent to us, please?
Yes, absolutely. I
Thank
do
you.
apologize that was not emailed in advance
Thank you.
and did try to run quick copies. So notice that we had duplications, and I will get that cleaned up and email it out. Sorry about that.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to adjourn the budget presentation.
At what time, Mayor?
At 6:56 and 8 seconds. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. We'll return to the council, start the council meeting at its normal time of 7 o'clock.
I kind of had it in a different order because he did all his stuff.
I bet she's as
She
loud as
won't sit in her
dad.
chair, Mayor.
Valley Center City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022 is now in session. Roll call.
Mayor Cicerillo.
Here.
Councilmember Stamm.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Bass.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Colbert.
Here.
Do we have, there's a lot of people here.
Yes.
Oh, there, okay. Please rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day, this beautiful day you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity to live life to the fullest. Lord, we're reminded of the words of Psalms 37 that we're admonished to trust you. God, I pray for these councilmen, councilwomen, Father, that as they lead and go through the agenda tonight, that they trust you. Lord, we also know that we're to delight in you. And so, God, may we find pleasure in the opportunity to serve our community. And God, that we would commit all our ways, all the decisions to you. And lastly, Father God, I pray that we'd learn to rest. And Lord, as they process decisions and be comfortable with moments of silence as they think about what is on the agenda, God, may your presence speak to them. And we thank you for all that you're doing in Valley Center, and we give you the glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Item 5, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, administrative agenda, the 6A, the city council meeting minutes of May 17th, 2022.
Make a
Move
motion
to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 regular council meeting as presented.
Second.
Have kind of two motions in a second. But that's okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, presentations and proclamations. The EMC dividend check presentation. Yay.
Hi, I'm Christy Kirchert with the Insurance Guys. I'm here representing the Insurance Guys and EMC Insurance. We're here presenting a dividend check back to the City of Valley Center, and we just want to thank the city very much.
And how much is that for?
It is for $26,233.97.
Great job. Thank you. Like I'll get the whole thing.
You can hold it for
Yeah, I can hold it to the end of the meeting so I can give it to somebody to put it in the bank. You're right. All right. Great. Okay. We are now at the time in the meeting where anybody in the audience that would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda may do so. Seeing none, we will move on to appointments. I do have two. For both to the Economic Development Board, and both are reappointments. Randy Jackson, whose term will expire in 2024, and Bryant Haight, I knew I was going to get it wrong, whose term also expires in 2024. With unless there's any objection, council, the motion could be made to include them both.
I move to reappoint the two appointees.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you. No committees and commissions, no old business. Moving on to new business. Item A, Hornet Hustle race request. Wow. Who wrote that?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Haley Clark, and this is Sam Clubb, and we are members of the Abilene PTO and the Hornet Hustle Committee, which is a new committee that includes all the elementary schools in Valley Center this year. And we are excited, this is going to be a repeat, we're excited to announce that the annual Hornet Hustle fundraiser will be a combined effort with all the elementary schools in Valley Center, as well as the intermediate school. We are so thrilled to be working as one district and bringing all our kids together for this event on August 27th at the intermediate school. Last year, council approved police escorts for a road race, which was very appreciated and successful. We are asking you again tonight to approve police escorts for our road races, which include a 2-mile and a 5K. The maps for the routes are included in your packets. We are projecting anywhere from 700 to 1,000 participants total, but most of these runners will more than likely not be running the road race. These will both be running races only, and they will start at 9 and 10 a.m. We will again be hosting food trucks at the event and plan to have some vouchers for the officers to grab some lunch afterwards. Thank you so much for your consideration on the police assistance during our event.
Questions from council?
Throw in real quick. I have looked at the map and I'm confident we can assist with this and look forward to it.
All right.
Motion for approval of staff assistance needed for Hornet Hustle on August 27th, 2022.
Second. A motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Item B, Resolution 720-22, the General Obligation Temporary Notes Series 2022-1.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to introduce them, but we do have, of course, our bond counsel, Dominic and Clayton are with us. We did have the sale this morning, and they'll go into further detail about the fantastic news that we received today.
And Clayton Kelly with Piper Sandler. Dustin Avey is the one that is usually in here in place of me, so he's my colleague. So yeah, today we had the sale for the 2 temporary note issues, and over the past really couple months, it's been a very volatile interest rate environment. There's a lot of news coming out, as you're aware, with inflation going on and different federal funds, them increasing the rates recently. So we weren't quite sure exactly how many banks would stay put and sit until we get some more economic information nationally at the end of this week or not, but ended up having a really good result for the city. 5 bids on both temporary notes. There was a taxable and a tax exempt portion of the temporary notes, and getting handed out in front of you right now is the results from both of those sales. And as you'll notice on the tax exempt general obligation temporary notes in the amount of about 9.7 million, the winning bid was at a 2.20%. And that was from Raymond James and Associates. And really you can kind of see where these different banks feel, even with the short as a temporary note is, where the market is interest rate wise. And so it's just getting that many results really kind of helps us get a better gauge and make us feel good about the result that the city got on this and how competitive it was. And then the next one was the taxable general obligation temporary notes. Same exact closing date on these, June 23rd is when these will be funded. But that one versus tax exempt, taxable rate's going to be a little bit higher because of that. But received 5 bids on that as well. And that one you can really kind of see where rates are going from a bank perspective. The disparity, 4.48% was the highest bid we had received, and Central States came in at the most competitive rate of 3.21%. So with that, Dom, I don't know if you wanted to speak more to it, but really tonight is just an action item that allows the city to accept both of these winning bids and move forward with closing on June 23rd. So I'd be happy to take any questions in regards to the financing aspect of this if you have any.
Council. Questions? Clearly, you can see the impact. I don't remember the last time I've seen bond numbers that were over even 3%. We've been getting really pretty good deals for quite a long time. So with that said, with that said, any other questions? Do we have a motion for the first one?
Approval of resolution 720-22, GO temporary note series 2022-1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Move right along on to item C, which is resolution 721-22 taxable GO temporary notes series 2022-2. Motion.
Move to approve resolution 721-22 taxable GO temporary notes series 2022-2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're going to learn some of these motions are a lot harder to read than they actually. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming. All right, moving right along. Approval of vacation order VAC 2022-01.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This request has been submitted by Matthew Anderson on behalf of his LLC Maston Investments, which owns 2 lots in the city's industrial park. As noted on the staff report, this is located southwest of that intersection, and this is a request to vacate a 15-foot drainage easement that runs north and south through these at the intersection of these 2 lots. This has been a request. This is requested as part of a potential land sale to National Plastics Color, or NPC, also located here in Valley Center. And at this time, they are looking to purchase this land from Maston Investments LLC in order to construct an additional facility to add to their existing infrastructure here in Valley Center. This has been reviewed and recommended for approval by the city's Planning and Zoning Board. It's also been reviewed by the city staff review team. There are no issues. There is no existing infrastructure, no pipes in the ground as part of this area to be vacated. So for those of you that aren't as familiar with vacation orders, how this works is once if you approve this tonight, this is then submitted to the Sedgwick County Register of Deeds office for formal recording. And what you see here, the screenshot from the Sedgwick County GIS map, that 15-foot drainage easement, they'll either erase it or add the vacation filing information, so you can see that it has been formally vacated. But again, the staff report as well as the legal survey documents have been included in your packets for this evening. Stand for any questions that you may have, but again, we are recommending approval of this vacation order tonight.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
The last 2 weeks have been a really good test of the necessity of having a drainage easement right there. So since you're saying it, we don't need it.
Yeah, so now what will still remain on there is the drainage easement that runs to the east and west. There's a large open ditch right there. That is not being vacated. It is the area to the north of that, where that northern edge is, up to the property line on the north side. So that will be vacated, but that ditch isn't going anywhere. That is definitely needed as part of the area, drainage. So that will remain. It's just the area to the north that is requested to be vacated.
Is this 2 lots or 1?
This is 2. So what you see here are 2 legal parcels of land, and this easement is on both sides of that. And so in the vacation order itself, it does provide a legal description of what will be vacated on these 2 lots, but yet you are correct. It is 2 lots.
Yes. And this is the vacant lots on the corner.
That is correct. Yes. Right now, it's a disc field.
Yeah. Okay. Just to clarify that.
Yep.
All right. Council, any motion?
Motion for approval of the vacation order 2022-01.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item E, approval of A&E contract for rec and aquatic complex.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. Before you here is for the architect engineering services agreement for the recreation and aquatic complex with SJCF, Schaefer Johnson Cox and Fry Architecture. We do have Terry Wiggers in attendance, as well as some members from his team that are going to give a quick little bio over themselves and their firm and what to expect in the contract that is before you. Terry, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brent. Coming around is a little chart of our team. Not everybody could be here tonight that we would love to have introduced you to, but I'll try to get to it. My name is Terry Wiggers. I'm principal in charge of the project. To my far left is Matt Ham. He will be the project manager. Matt just came off of doing the Maze aquatic project over there. If you have not seen it, go over and check it out. Gary Holler will be the project architect and has been involved in numerous recreation projects all over the place. Also, Robert Love, who couldn't be here tonight, has worked on just about every one of the YMCAs in the Wichita area. He'll be on the team as well as a couple of architects for us. Teaming up with us is Water's Edge. Jeff Bartley, principal, will be involved. Brian Hill is with Water's Edge. He's been involved in the operation side of which every facet of operating pools, competitions, et cetera. He brings a really good perspective to this process for us. So that kind of makes up the general team. There's a number of support people that you'll meet as we go through this. At any rate, I think you have to click once more, Brent, to get it to fly. Brick PowerPoint. There you go. SJCF, when we did the presentation to the committee, one of the things we really emphasized is we've had years and years of community engagement and transparency and communicating not only with the community, but getting them in support. You know, engagement, consensus building usually builds up into support. So that's one of the real key things that we believe in. I think you would like to see that as well, as have the community be a very participatory part of this whole process. In addition to that, got a lot of history in aquatic parks, recreational facilities, gyms, program rooms, et cetera. And if you've been around Wichita, you've seen a lot of our work, because almost all the new YMCA's are work. And some of the aquatic parks that you see on the screen are either ours or Water's Edge, or both of us, because we've worked together several times before. So we're really excited to get started. In fact, we did a preliminary meeting with the committee. We were just kind of excited. We said, we'll go out on faith and have a meeting prior to you approving us.
Try to do anything we can for a little freaky there.
Yeah. And we did a little philosophical question and answer period, which brought some really nice conversation to get things kicked off. So we're kind of at the next step now is really going to focus on Lions Park if you approve us, because that's going to be a really tight time frame, so we can make some quick decisions on that and then continue to plan the rest of the project. So I think what we'd like to do is just stop and let you ask us any questions instead of going too long into them. We could use a whole hour if you want us to, but I think
it wouldn't be bad if we didn't have an hour budget meeting ahead of time. So, Council, do you have any questions? I do have a comment, actually. I was shocked to see the one from Urbandale, Iowa show up. My daughter plays travel hockey, and I've actually seen that facility. And the first time I looked at it, I said, this is cool. We could do something like this in Valley Center. So it was pretty amazing that popped up, and it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that one is. So
I don't know about you guys. We've done YMCAs in 6 states. So what happened there was people out of the country came to Wichita because the YMCAs here were such a model. And then they started calling, asking us if we could do some work for them. So we've actually just said yes and ended up in 6 different states now. We're doing 2 of them up in northern Indiana. So
amazing what word of mouth does, right? No need to pay for fancy marketing and advertising.
A lot of fancy marketing, that's right.
Councilmember Anderson.
Mine was more along the line of a comment also. I have been in the Mays Aquatic Center. However, I don't think we have quite the budget to work with what they had. But being in many different schools' facilities this year for swim meets, high school swim meets, I will say that just the planning and the layout of that was far above the other ones. A lot of them were built just for the athletes and not considering any patrons being in there. And although you're not going to have people in there all the time, just having that thought of movement of people when you have large groups on the occasions that you do, it seemed very well thought out, and it was a beautiful facility.
Now on the Maze one, I mean, separating out the performing arts side of it, just the aquatic side. I'm not sure what the budget was on that, but just the full $30 million. Yeah.
And I didn't even
that
get to see
wasn't all
the
the pool.
performing
That
arts,
wasn't all the pool.
If you're into fine arts, a lot of people like the auditorium too. So,
They didn't like us in there with wet feet, so we didn't go in there.
one thing that I will say about that is that's unique is you have the pool, you have an auditorium. They don't like each other because the pool smells, don't want to be in the auditorium, et cetera. And so there's a very strong isolation between those two functions. And you can go in the auditorium, you will not smell the water in that room.
Oh. Very good. Anybody else? You want to have anything else for us?
But probably will give us time to really develop what we want to present to you next time.
All right, Councilmember Kerstetter.
So just want to go over timeline. We approved this tonight. What's next?
We're meeting tomorrow. We're going to start discussing how to get equipment for Lions Park ordered early, because lead times are our biggest challenge. On the gym, the rec facility, we probably have a better handle on that. But if we want to get to Lions Park here in the off season, we've got to jump on that right away. So we're meeting tomorrow on that specifically. That'll probably drive the early meetings, but at the same time, we'll start doing the planning and program confirmation for the rec facility as well. Looking at site, looking at what the exact program wants to be. There may be some adjustment there. So we'll reconfirm that. That'll be the first thing.
And you have a meeting with the committee.
Right, a week from tomorrow. Yeah.
Um,
I'm in the middle of volunteering for Riverfest, so days are all a blur right at the moment.
I understand. Budget comes out of the whole because I always ask budget questions. To pay them, it comes out of the full umbrella of the
sales tax.
Sales tax.
Yep. And so right now, and that's kind of why, I know, the citizens, yes, we collected a sales tax. We started collecting sales tax in April 1st of 2021. Yes, I realize it's June of 2022, but you do want to make sure, because we don't receive it until 2 months in the rear of when it actually is collected. And so it's remitted to us 2 months after it's collected. So when you go to the gas station or Cottage Market or any of those places, when you pay it, we don't see it for a few months. So we want to get a good understanding of where that budget number was and what our revenues were coming up. Of course, those revenues are all on the agenda section of our website underneath the Pool and Recreation Committee. And so you can see exactly where our sales tax revenues are coming in. We are, averaging a lot more than we budgeted. On average, Mr. Kane, we're in the $60,000 to $65,000 a month range, where we had budgeted $33,333.33, not to be exact. And so the budget is coming in healthy. So those revenues have been sitting in a fund. You cannot touch those except for anything related then to the sales tax. So that's where this contract is coming out of. This is where the next contract that's up for the construction manager at risk services. That's where those fees and services are coming out, because we don't want to issue any bonds or debt until we know what we're issuing. So we have no idea what the budget currently is. Now we have the estimated $10.5 million that we voted on. And so then we'll review those numbers, and then we'll come back, of course, to the council throughout the course of their now public engagement. Because the concept that we came up with was just that. It was a concept to put in front of the voters that was with a different firm. And that firm and that contract is done. And so now this is a phase 2 of this process and this project. And so we want to wait until, we really know what the end dollar amount is going to be. And you have a few items on your agenda tonight related to the sales tax expenditures. And that's what we've been sitting on. And that's what we've been still continuing to collect. And we will continue to collect that, but we want to try to pay these bills with cash on hand versus, of course, issuing debt. Even though we can issue great debt and have phenomenal bidders, we still want to make sure that we do our due diligence with the taxpayers' money.
Thank you.
Was that a long enough response?
No, but I think it was.
No.
I was going to say it was a good explanation of the time of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yes.
Did forget to mention one thing. The next contract you're working on is with McCown Gordon. We have worked with them numerous times as well. I'm very comfortable with CMER process. That was part of the decision, I think, of the committee. We've already kind of met with them too. So tomorrow will be a really good work session with both of our companies together.
And this is a unique process. I'm sure that these two companies probably, curse me. But so typically you hire the AE and then you wait a few months or a year and then you hire the CM. Well, we don't like to sit around and wait. And so we're trying to expedite it for that purpose because we have collected the sales tax since April of 2021. And so now it's kind of, I told everybody, you all had a break on the committee. You had a little time to catch your breath. So now we're going to start sprinting again so we can get the renovations in Lions Park going immediately after that pool closes. So we do not miss a pool season at the same time of designing, get into the nitty gritty of the rec center and the new indoor aquatic facility. The only way to kind of meet some of these timeframes was to do both of these processes at the same time. But traditionally, you typically don't see that. But everyone was phenomenal to work with. The committee, hats off to you for dealing with me on hitting the gas pedal there for a few weeks, and now we're going to hit it again. So just so you know, for the next two items.
See what happens when you say no? He finds a way to come back.
Oh, and he's
every time.
Every time. Doesn't matter.
All right, council, anything else?
Motion to approve the final agreement with Schaefer Johnson Cox Fry and authorize mayor or city administrators to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item F, approval of CMAR contracts for rec and aquatic complex.
Good evening again. I'll be short and brief. Here is McCown Gordon. Mitch, there you go.
So we're excited to be here this evening just to share a little bit about ourselves. Of course, McCown Gordon was recommended by the committee to provide the building construction services. And I'm Mitch Binns. I'd be serving as the principal in charge for the project. This is Todd Demler. He'd be the lead project manager. McCown Gordon has experience in a number of recreation facilities and aquatics. The aquatics part of this project really got us excited. So as Brent and Terry both mentioned, that's where the initial focus is going to be, is the Lions Park. Getting that project off and getting the materials ordered so we can get that work completed before next pool season. But our responsibility as construction manager at risk is really going to be focusing on maintaining that budget and keeping those dollars in line with whatever the committee feels like is the right budget number. But we're supposed to provide all the budget information for any part and piece that the committee may want to research and identify as items that they may want to understand costs and schedule implications. So with Todd's expertise and our pre-construction team, our estimating team, we'll utilize their expertise to kind of uncover every rock and understand the costs for any part and piece, and then understand what the schedule implications might be. So we want to get started as soon as possible, but we absolutely don't want to get started too early where we're waiting for materials and our labor is being charged on site. So our responsibility is really just to sit alongside the SJCF architecture team and make sure they have all the knowledge that they can to draw the right stuff so the committee can make the best decisions. For any questions?
Council? Councilmember Gregory.
Mr. Arbuckle, you have read all of these contracts, have you not? Because I tried and I thought, I'm not an attorney. I don't know if this is the way it's supposed to be or not.
And I'll probably let then talk about, but and so these are AIA documents, and so these are very standard agreements when it comes to these types of projects. As you see, there's one, of course, with the AE and CMAR, two separate ones, but these are vetted through a tremendous amount of attorneys. Mr. Arbuckle, I'm sure you've reviewed AIA documents before. They're standards. And then you change them to customize and fit your specific project. So it lays out the expectations, timelines, and all those agreements in these types of documents. These are the same documents that we use with PEC a lot of times and PEC contracts when it comes to the construction document side. We just passed and approved one with Wildcat construction last meeting. And so that's what a lot of these standard agreements are for. We're actually looking at, from a city standpoint, of purchasing a series of the AIA documents that would benefit us in the long run to then not necessarily have attorney fees and drafting contracts that are already standardized amongst the industry.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the final agreement 201 with McCown Gordon and authorize mayor, city administrator to sign, and the approval of the final agreement 133 with McCown Gordon and authorize mayor, city administrator to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Before I call the vote, I'd just like to say it sounds like we got a great team going on here. I just from the short bit of conversations, it sounds like they're maybe even more excited than we are to get this going. So thank you all for being here. And with that said, all in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Item G, letter of intent for land purchase at 9102 North Meridian.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Exciting things happening on the agenda this evening. So as you just passed and approved two agreements and contracts when it comes to the AE side, the construction manager at risk, looking at that guaranteed maximum price. Well, the committee did also meet last week and we reviewed, what is potential other locations. I'm sure you've seen in the press and our phenomenal Ark Valley News that there are some other potential sites that are available to the committee and to the city council. One of those being, and the primary one, is Reserve A. This would be on the old former Larry Rowley property. This is in between the middle school and high school along Meridian Street. And we really don't know exactly the footprint, do we, of the new facility? We don't. We know that we have an existing outdoor pool. We know more than likely we will not be able to afford to put a new outdoor pool, a 35,000 square foot rec center, and an indoor pool on the budget we currently have. And so we need more time to figure out what that could potentially be. When the committee met, we did propose, a few different options, but this was the one they landed on the most. And they said, hey, the city, Brent, if you can go and negotiate a letter of intent and sign, with Reserve A, we would be supportive of exploring, this 35 acres in Reserve A to potentially locate this facility and site. Now, we know that this facility will not need 35 acres, but we need to acquire it somehow, some way. And so what we would do is the letter of intent would give us an opportunity as this ground is being platted So as you know, it already was voluntarily annexed in with the new developer. And the developer is in the process now of developing the plat map that will run through Mr. Schrack's office and the Planning and Zoning Board and eventually come to your desk. Hopefully sometime in September, hopefully beginning of September, fingers crossed. And at that time then will be when we actually have to truly make a decision when it comes to closing. And then we would know what we're purchasing, because right now all it is one large parcel. It's not platted. And so what this does is this allows, if you read the letter of intent, this allows us to basically put an option on this ground. The option price would be for $19,000 an acre. It was sold for $15,000 an acre. So, I mean, there is a transaction fee you have to pay, to take the risk. And then this will give us our due diligence and our time to then lay out exactly what we need and where we need it. Then we will use sales tax money to purchase all the 35 acres. And then when we're done, we will then divide and lot split off what is going to be kept for the pool and the rec and the city service side. And then we will split off and sell the other part for, the exact same amount or a premium. I don't know. And then those revenues of the lot sale will then go to replenish, of course, the sales tax. So the sales tax is only paying for the area that the new recreation and aquatic complex would be on. They'll not pay for an acre more than what that facility is going to be used for today and for the future. I know that, Lions Park was what was sold to the community during the sales tax. I also make sure you all remember that in 2020, we didn't have a lot of options. The only options that we had as far as the city goes with land even to develop on was Lions Park or any other existing park, the Ford Street property that the city owns on the south side of Ford Street, just south of Dexter, where Dexter and Ford meet. That was it. Folks that were on the committee then, that are on the council, they know we talked about it. We tried to flush it out. The infrastructure wise on the one on Ford Street that the city owns, that 20 and a quarter acres, just for the infrastructure alone to get back there to develop was going to be $3.2 to $3.5 million. Sales tax cannot support that. Yes, the land purchase on this is high, but we will not use all of it. And then when we do sell it, that money will go back to the sales tax fund. I guarantee you that the $665,000 will not widen all the streets adjacent to it in Lions Park. Now, if we sign this and let's say we explore this option and it is not the most feasible and the committee's like, Brent, it's a great idea. We just can't swing it. Let's not do it. Then that's fine. We need to make that decision by September, but that's why we hired the people we hired tonight to then make that decision to help us through that process together as a group and as a community. So before you tonight is to sign the letter of intent with the land developer to put kind of our flag. We'll get to our flag later too. Stick our flag on this Reserve A, this big blue box of 35 or so acres. And then let the developer continue on with the platting process and then really make the final decision at a later date. So this is the letter of intent for you this evening. Stand for any questions.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
You hit on it a little bit. So legally, we can only purchase this with the sales tax money if it goes for the portion that goes to, say it's 5 acres, then the other 30 acres is going to be up for sale or something.
Yep. Yes. Yep. But right now we don't know exactly where that's going to be.
Right. I just,
if you've noticed, when the street commercial signs got put up on the corner to maybe try to pre-sell some of those lots, that gas company sure put some markers right over their line, and that actually is diagonally through this property.
of course,
right through there. And so that's why we kind of, you kind of have to go larger, and then you got to figure out, building setbacks. Mr. Schrack and I met with Southern Star last week to make sure that we know where all their lines are and they know what our plans are, and we're all on the same page. So yes, when we get to knowing if it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 15, we kind of want to have a blank canvas for the committee so we can get what the community truly wants. Because with Schaefer, Johnson, Cox and Fry, those ones will We'll go through a community engagement again, like we did in 2020. We'll kind of pan out or kind of forecast out what the community wants again, making sure we flush out anything that, people may have wanted in 2020 that we don't necessarily want now, and then design the facility and know what acres we need for the building that we're going to build in 2023, but as well as future expansion. And that's another reason why Lions Park, when the committee met, Lions Park is a great location, phenomenal. But we are painted into a corner and really restricted for any future growth and development or expansion of this facility we build for any of our future kids, grandkids, and what have you.
So the architect is aware of this potential?
Yes.
Okay, they're gone already.
Oh, they're gone.
The
people leave me all the time. Yes.
They're still here.
They are.
So
Yep.
they can tell them on.
McCown Gordon knows.
All right. I think that's all the questions I have.
Councilmember Anderson.
I was a little leery about moving locations in the very beginning. And I've come along as far as knowing, and I have talked to several people when we put this up for vote. I know people who live in the area. I have relatives that live in the area. Their concern was always the streets surrounding the park, what it's going to do to the actual park, because we put our community building in there. I dropped my daughter off tonight right before I came to this meeting. They were having a swim meet.
They were?
There was not enough room for two cars to get by each other on Colby. And it was not they will have larger swim meets than what they're having tonight. And I realized we would put in some parking lots, but that's just going to eat up all of our green space. The more I think about it, the more I see, I don't like having both facilities at Lions Park, because I want to save some of what Lions Park is. And I like the idea of renovating our outdoor park, our outdoor pool, and having a separate facility from our rec center. And that just solidified it in my mind tonight, trying to come out of there and having to back up into the parking lot to let a car go by, because people were parked legally. You would have to have a massive reconstruction. You're going to end up eating up all that green space.
And we have on-street parking on some of those roads adjacent to that corner of the park. And so, those are narrow now. And even if we even after phase 2 in Lions Park, we're still only adding 147 parking stalls. We're going to need a lot more memberships in there. And I know Blake with the Rec Commission, he's going to have a lot of programs we're going to have a heck of a lot more people than that coming in and out of those doors in the first phase. So that's why, we tried, back in 2020 to acquire some property. At that time, it was not for sale. I was told multiple times it was not for sale in many different ways. And, now we do have an opportunity. This isn't the only location. There's another one in the TIF district. Thing in the TIF district, though, sure it'd be nice to get some tax dollars in the TIF district to pay off the TIF a little earlier. So, you try not to, sell ground to yourself. But so that's why this site came up. And the committee was excited. I did receive some phone calls, when the agenda packet went out, and I received, a few, potential complaints and issues that, sold in Lions Park. But then on the other hand, the same time that I received a call against it, and then I received 2 calls for it, saying, hey, thanks for not taking away the green space, good, foresight and planning for the future. What else are you going to do on the site? There's a lot of excitement around the growth. That was always identified between the middle school and high school, I think, as an area to grow. The utilities are right along Meridian for the water lines and right along the little ditch for the sewer. And so those are going to be right there with the development. All these other folks, let's get them all to pay for part of it to bring those utilities to us. If we do a joint effort and venture between everyone, then it makes it a lot more feasible for us to then develop that corner or this southeast corner or the southwest corner, the northwest, wherever we want. It makes it a lot more viable for us to then upgrade that. Yes, Meridian Street, I know, is a terrible road. We have concepts for 4 lanes. We always have had concepts for 4 lanes. But until we find some grant money for it, I like grants and not having us pay for it. That's when we will go ahead and proceed forward with those things. So not our first rodeo when it comes to planning, correct, Mr. Schrack?
and we're excited for the future in the northern part of our community.
Councilmember Stam.
I'm on the committee, and it was kind of a unanimous vote who was here when we talked about it, about moving it, because like Councilman Anderson said, a lot of people still have heartache from the community built there taking up space.
Yes.
There's a lady on our committee, her name escapes me.
Janet O'Donnell?
Yeah, she was in favor for this area because it's out by the high school, so the swim team and the kids are all kind of right there. And also, if it's built on the south end, the parking lot will help the overflow to the football stadium also. It'll help move some of the parking on the street and have them during the football games.
Oh, God!
He's still standing. You didn't scare him good enough.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I wanted to touch base on. I'm Blake. I'm the director of the Rec Commission. I'm on the committee too, and we did have a great conversation at the committee meeting, and a few of you are in here. I think on my part of it, just seeing this come available was kind of exciting, because I think something we want to do is program with the schools. We want to bring the schools into the rec during the day for swim lessons and different things that we can offer them. We also want to offer after-school programs that this makes it easy to walk. You're walking right across the sidewalk from the intermediate school, and the middle school is right there for a lot of after-school programming. Safety aspect, I really feel better about this. I mean, I know Lions Park has sidewalks and stuff to it, but it's a lot closer. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me. I mean, there's a lot of little things, but and all our other facilities are right there. Our golf course, the baseball fields, all our soccer fields. So would kind of be in one local area. So that's just some few things that on the rec side of it, this is an exciting location for us. So.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, I happen to agree that we need to take a serious look at this area here. If you know that the Lions Park is being used for just about every event for the schools or anything, and we put the rec building in that area there, they're not going to have any space whatsoever to work with. The other thing I like about it, it'd be on the north side of town for a change.
He can walk. He can even walk to it.
Walk right across the street to it, yes.
Good plug for the ward.
But I honestly think if we do put it up there, that we would have a bigger attraction also. Because when the school kids and the people from Wichita come in and pick their kids up and see that we have something over there, I think it's going to be a plus for us. Thank you.
I'll throw my 2 cents in here. I was totally against moving it out of Lions Park because that's what we sold. But the more I've heard and the more I've talked to people and just even the conversations I've heard here tonight, I think this is probably the wisest choice to not leave it in Lions Park. And as Councilmember Colbert said, that Lions Park gets used for a lot. The churches rent it out yearly. And I went back and looked at the drawings of how it would sit in there, and yeah, we're taking out a huge chunk of green space to a park that's really in the center, you know. So I like I said, I was not real thrilled about moving it out of there, but I think I've definitely swayed into it's probably a better idea. So that was my 2 cents worth. So.
Motion to approve letter of intent to purchase approximately 35 acres of real estate located at 9102 North Meridian and authorize mayor to sign.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you. Item H, award bid and contract to New Gen Strategies and Solutions LLC for electric feasibility study.
Good evening.
Supposed to make the motions long, not the headers, okay?
Perfect.
Well, I wanted to make sure that this was clear because this is a very complex endeavor that with the approval tonight that we're really embarking on. I mean, this is not something that every council in every city nor every city really wants to try to tackle. And so I commend each and every one of you for even having this on the agenda and for allowing us to explore the feasibility of potentially municipalizing our electrical system. You've heard enough from me tonight, so I'm going to turn it over to Scott
Burnham with New Gen and his group that he brought with him this evening from all over the U.S. to help not only this evening with a nice PowerPoint and a nice presentation, but also kickoff that we will have tomorrow morning with city staff. So I'll turn it over to you, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be here. My name is Scott Burnham. I'm a partner with New Gen Strategies and Solutions, and we are a management and consulting economic firm. We'll talk about some of our firm, and I'll talk about my two colleagues here as well. We have a presentation here that Brent, you can pull that up. We want to talk about sort of the project scope. We want to talk about a little bit of the project team organization, some background on that, and some of the strategic process that a municipalization feasibility study sort of goes through. We have some specifics. We'll walk through the project plan, and we'll talk about, thank you. We'll talk about the project budget and schedule. We've got some reference projects to talk about, and then of course we'll be happy to answer any questions. As we go through this, we'd be happy to answer any questions. So feel free to interrupt, ask questions, and the like. So I mentioned, I am a partner with New Gen Strategy Solutions. I will also be the project manager. We will be the prime on this project. I've got Tom Gadosi here. Tom Gadosi is with Exponential Engineering Company. He is the president of Exponential Engineering Company. And they do a lot of work on distribution lines and engineering transmission facilities and the like. We've worked with Tom. I've worked with Tom for, I don't know how long, 6 years now at least, on a variety of projects, evaluating and looking at feasibility of municipalization and looking at valuation of distribution assets. We also have John Coyle with Duncan and Allen. John is an attorney there that has 35 years of experience working with a lot of different municipal issues and related to electric utilities as well.
I don't know what he did to your PowerPoint.
Yep, sorry, Master.
That's all right.
Hold 1 second. You can keep going.
Okay, all right. So the next slide we're talking about is just an org chart, just showing essentially that I will be the responsible party for the project, managing the project. Duncan and Allen and some of the folks that work on their team, some of the folks on Exponential team, and then some of the folks with New Gen as well. So we will be responsible for the sort of the financial piece of it, and Exponential doing the engineering, and Duncan and Allen doing the legal part. So when municipalities think about municipalization, it can be a very expensive, and it can be a very long process. For a successful municipalization, and there have been successful municipalizations over the past 20 years or so, the city needs to have a very clear mandate. They need a very clear mandate from the voters. They need to have a very strong political will from their leaders. It can be a very arduous process. There is a lot of the incumbent utility. You're taking assets from them, and they generate revenue from those assets. And so it can get very contentious. It's also important that the city have a very strong and equitable funding mechanism relative to the process itself and sort of how they will eventually acquire the assets. One of the first things that we do when we come to a municipality like yourselves that is thinking about an endeavor as this is we talk about, let's define project success. What are the city's goals and objectives here? We spent a little time actually with Brent just earlier today talking about that, and we have a meeting with Brent and some of the folks with the city tomorrow morning to discuss that and to get an idea of what is the city attempting to achieve. Why does the city want to become a municipal electric utility? There are certainly a lot of benefits to doing so, and there are also a lot of costs associated with doing so. So that element, that strategic process is a key part of how we look at this whole project. Talk a little bit about the phase one study. What we included in our proposal was a phase one study, which is designed to give you guys enough information to make that decision if you want to go forward. This can be, as I mentioned, a very lengthy, a very expensive process. And so we feel like it's our responsibility to inform you as best we can on the information that we learn from the study
about what those costs may be, what that process may be, and how long it would take. So when we developed the proposal, we broke it down into 4 tasks. The first one is data acquisition, understanding what your load looks like, understanding what the potential city municipality might look like from a service point of view. We'll have a project kickoff meeting. We're going to do that again tomorrow morning. We'll talk about those strategic assessments and the strategic elements of this study. We will then develop a preliminary financial model. The intent of the average rate, the average retail rate that the city would pay compared to the rate as you have now with Evergy, right? So it's a financial analysis to do a comparison of, does it make financial sense to municipalize, given all the information and the assumptions, because we will have to make a lot of assumptions in the study, as through and think about the different elements about acquiring the costs and acquiring the system and severing the system, and we'll talk more about some of those specific elements here in a bit. And then finally, we'll come back to you. We'll prepare a report. We'll obviously be in contact with Brent and his team throughout the whole process. We'll come back to you with a presentation, a report, and recommendations. So task 1 and 2 calls a kickoff meeting. Assuming the contract is approved, then we will have that kickoff meeting tomorrow morning. We'll talk about those strategic objectives. We'll look at some of the documents that the city currently has, the franchise ordinance and the franchise agreement behind that. We'll talk about some of the correspondence that you've had to date with Evergy and some of their responses to what your concerns are. Talk about some of the city's existing infrastructure maps, GIS systems and the like. And again, looking at reviewing data, it's important to understand what your customer mix looks like, how much is residential, how much is commercial, how much is industrial, where that load is vis-a-vis the city municipal boundaries, and what that load looks like. One of the elements that was in the RFP that Brent had put together there was develop 10 questions for Evergy. And we will certainly do that, getting a data request out to the investor and utility, informing them of this process, and giving them the opportunity to provide data. In our experience, they are not so forthcoming with the data, but you have to sort of give them the opportunity to respond. As I mentioned, NewGen will be responsible for developing the financial model. The intent is to estimate what those municipal costs over a 20-year period, including the purchase price, severance and reintegration. Those are estimates that Tom's going to put together, and he'll talk about sort of that process here in a second. Elements around stranded cost, and again, that's a legal definition that John Coyle and Duncan and Allen folks will handle. We'll talk about the load forecast. We talk about electric load and what that load looks like. And now, of course, you guys are adding a water park. Water parks take a lot of electricity. That's an important element to thinking about, where the city will be in 20 years. Power supply costs, obviously a huge issue today, given some volatility in power pricing that we're seeing across the country, and fuel pricing. Startup, ongoing O&M, operations and maintenance costs. We'll develop estimates for that. As mentioned, that's something that NewGen will bring to the financial model based on our experience working with municipalities over the past, my career for 25 years. Long-range capital plans, the idea that you would make investments in the electric utility over time, how those investments would be financed, how the purchase of the asset would be financed, and then some replacement of municipal revenues. Right now, you're getting a franchise fee, presumably from Evergy. And that's obviously something that municipal utilities then remit back to the municipal ownership of the utility, or of the entity. One of the things that Brent included, and which I think was a great idea in the RFP, was this idea of a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which really sort of summarizes the whole the analysis that we're going to do and put together for you. And using that SWOT analysis then to form the recommendations of the study. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom. Come up and talk a little bit here about the purchase price and some of the field work that he and his crew would do.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. What we bring to the table in terms of the team is looking at the electric system and coming up with what do you need, what is there already, and then how would you go about separating it in order to maintain service to your own citizens within the municipal boundary, but also maintain a similar level of service to the remaining utility customers outside the boundary of the city. Typically, that effort may dwarf the cost of purchasing, may dwarf some other things. It really depends on the municipal boundaries, on what kind of load concentration there is. So those are all things that we look at carefully. And honestly, one of the things that we looked at, your municipal boundary is fascinating.
Don't think I've ever heard it called that before.
That's an engineer. But it really is, what we're looking at is we need to present an engineering analysis that is according to the philosophy of how utilities work, that would be acceptable to regulatory agencies. And that's what we do. Is so when we come back with a plan, it isn't a plan that is, a pie in the sky or something. It's like, no, this is what would have to be put in practice, because we look at it as being, if this is going to work, there has to be a solid plan that the utility will say, I guess we don't have any choice, but they will implement their side of the plan and maintain service to their customers. And we just can't affect their customers, because that wouldn't be, appropriate for the people that are outside the municipal boundary. When we do this, we start with whatever the city's GIS equipment inventories are, whatever information you have. A lot of times stormwater and sewer and potable water information is what's really helpful, because that gives us a real idea of density and some of your corridors that are already there. We'll take that information, we'll also to take a look at what is this system, how is it built, where are the main sources, where's the station that feeds the city, are there multiple ones, how are the feeders arranged? And what that does gives us a couple things, gives us a way to see how could we separate, but also how much value is there in this facility. So we'll look at coming up with, this is the equipment that we see, this is approximately age or condition, and that will allow us to then come up with what we do as a replacement cost new analysis, which is one of the appraisal methods that is used for utility facility costing. And then we also come up with the condition and age, typically dividing it by decade, because no one's going to give us more detail. And honestly, we take some pride in that our records and what we find is often better than what the investor-owned utility might have in their own records. So it's kind of, that's our little challenge that we take on. But the idea being, again, that the city can have an idea of what's the cost of actually trying to acquire these facilities, be it by condemnation or negotiation or whatever process, because that cost is another significant part. And that's the part where a lot of legal issues come into play as well. So we try and button this up as well as we can early on to help you make a good decision. Because if we come back to you and say, okay, this system is worth $25 million, and you say, whoa, that's not what we were thinking, and Scott does a financial analysis and the rates are going to be higher, that's what we want to bring to you to say, this is what real is. And that way you can make a decision. I always like to tell our clients, we don't have a dog in this hunt, but we want to make sure that you have the best information we can give you, and you know what the limits are of what our knowledge is, so that you can make your best decision at any given point in time. That's why we divided this up into phases too, because I look at it as I don't want to bite off and we're going to go down the whole toll road. I need some off ramps. I need to know, okay, we figured out this is out of hand. We got an off ramp. We can all stop and go on about our business. Or, hey, it's still good. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next stopping point. And to allow the city to be able to understand exactly what's going on throughout the process, so that clarity and integrity of the system analysis is what's really important to us. That's what engineers are all about, right? We will then look at some depreciation, but the other thing that I like doing is that 20-year plan that Scott talks about, because if you get the system, especially some investor-owned systems that I've run across, they need work. And so you can't just say, oh, we're going to acquire this, because when you acquire it on the day you get it, it's your problem now. And all those things that kind of bug you, maybe, and part of the reason why you might want to make this change, they're your problem then. So you want to have a plan in place that says, how are we going to deal with this right off the bat? And those are real costs that have to be there when you start, because you're going to be financing this 20-year long-range plan in sections or tranches to say, okay, for the next 2 years, we're going to do this. You may have to build some things right off the bat. So those are the kind of things we want to bring to attention. So it's not just acquiring a system, it's saying, what is this going to do? And in some cases, there are times when building your own system versus acquiring an existing system may turn out to be a better solution for you. That is something I'm considering because of the boundaries of the city, is that to separate along all those boundaries could be a lot of construction. If we're going to do that, should we just look at, do we build a city system that takes care of the city and leave the rest to the incumbent utility? So those are kind of things that we look at in the context of what's going on in your city. When we were talking with Brent, he was telling us about water projects. Well, those are utility projects that are putting things in the ground. We like to put things in the ground. So there may be some possibilities to, synergize those kinds of things at the same time. So overall, I think, is there a next? Okay. Oh, you're gonna make me push a button. That wasn't the button. Didn't come with instructions. You got it? Okay. When you look at, as I kind of alluded to, is when you're looking at separating these systems, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate to regulatory agencies of some sort that the reliability, performance, or capacity of the existing customers outside your municipal boundaries have will essentially be the same after you make your separation, you create your own utility. As John and I are fond of saying, don't step outside your municipal boundary, because the rules change. You really don't want to go there. So staying within the municipal boundary is really probably the only way to a potential success here. If you get outside there, you're under completely different jurisdiction, and you're spending more time in court than you really like to. We also look at, where's our transmission interconnection? How do we get power from wherever we're buying it into our system? Do we make a connection to MISO or to one of the independent system operators? What do we do there so that okay, this is how much we're going to pay. We're going to buy power way over here, and we're going to get it transmitted over the toll road, essentially the transmission system, to us. So then we know, well, how much does it cost on that toll road and how much is the original power cost, wherever we get it from. Those kinds of things are critical to know in advance, because that goes right into your rate analysis of what your customers, your citizens are going to be paying. Substation facilities, a substation is where the transmission system comes in and then starts branching out into the distribution, which feeds transformers at your houses. The substations are critical hubs in the whole system. A lot of times what we find is an existing substation might be somewhat ideal, but it serves outside and inside the city. Electric system doesn't care what municipal boundaries are. It's just serving customers wherever they are. So there may be a situation where we have to possibly build a new substation or try and separate a substation. Again, reliability issues come into that. So we spend a chunk of time on that. Some of our municipal customers have had a real preference for undergrounding, to say, okay, let's move this forward. Let's get a more resilient system. Those are things that we ask about and that we look into, because that is, while it's more expensive, in the past, it's been about 10 times when you look at underground versus overhead. That cost has come down significantly, maybe because the cost of overhead's gone up, but some of the techniques, especially directional drilling and those kind of things, have really helped that. And when you look at the reliability of that kind of system, there's a lot to be said for that. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, which has had an all underground system since the 90s. And they committed to starting that in 1978. And I've been there 30 years. I've had 2 outages that I can count on my house. And we have lightning and we have storms and everything else. So it's really, I mean, I come and preach the gospel of underground if people want to hear it. So, but that's an important consideration. It's more expensive, but if we're looking at what are we trying to do, there's no sense building something that doesn't meet what you're trying to accomplish, to make your city function better, to make it look better, whatever, whatever the citizens desire. Obviously we can't go through the entire system and at this stage of the game and go through this exhaustive thing, because that's not something that you should want to pay for, because we can make conclusions about the system by going through it in a sampling type of basis, and that's what we do. So we have limited field review, but it really gives us a good feel on the ground of this is what the system's like, this is the kind of construction, this is what we're going to have to deal with. We also use a unit cost approach because it really helps us to be able to say, all right, when you look at the valuation, we're looking at a contractor coming in, engineering and constructing this system. And that way we can put in unit costs to say, well, we're going to do so many miles of this. And that lets us extrapolate to the total value of the system without getting into excruciating detail, which you just don't want to pay for at this point. Down the road, there will be plenty of time for excruciating detail. But that's the approach that we take to help really define the goals, as Scott said, define what we're trying to accomplish with our work and your desires, then look at what's that system, come up with these definitions, talk about what do we got to do to go to the next step, and bring those prices in so we can all look at that. And honestly, one of the difficult things right now is prices are ridiculous. We've been looking at, in fact, I work with one of Scott's partners, and she called me up and said, why is my Handy Whitman, which is the all-time index of prices for power stuff, why is it going like this in the last 2 years? I said, well, you need to throw that part out because the last 2 years, no one knows what's going on. But these are kind of things that we work with consistently and constantly to say, how much is it going to cost to build something? We have contractors and vendors that we work with to get the information, and we try and look at it over a long term rather than these price spikes right now. Obviously, I don't think prices are ever going to go back to where they were, but I do see prices coming down as I call it the toilet paper hypothesis. All of the utilities bought all the stuff. The big boys bought all the stuff when they were worried it was going to run out. So the rest of us, we have one roll. That's all we get. So turn it back over to John.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Brent. Excruciating detail is my life, so. I wanted to try and summarize what can be a very complicated legal framework for this. You don't need to get into the complexity right now. I'm gonna break one of my cardinal rules and tell you that the four important ingredients of a successful municipalization are the spread, the bread, the lead, and the head. What do I mean by that? Spread is you have to have a viable economic proposition for your citizens, okay? How is this going to make their lives better? Bread, it's going to cost you some money. Head, you need committed and continuous local leadership committed to the project. Okay? And then lead, you better be prepared to sling some because some is going to get slung at you. So that's the quick and dirty. On the legal analysis, potential paths to the purchase price, you could negotiate it. I have been involved in municipalizations where things were negotiated. Usually negotiation involves some substantial elements of leverage on the part of the municipality. I think you guys may have some. It's a little bit beyond the scope of what I'm here to talk about tonight, but you do have a relatively short-term franchise with Evergy, which gives you the opportunity to use that for leverage some of your negotiating points, and that is a position in which not every municipality that embarks on this effort finds itself. There is a statutory mechanism in Kansas for when you do not renew the franchise of an incumbent utility. it is an artifact of Kansas's proud populist traditions. It goes back a long way. I think the last time it was amended was in 1941, but I think the statute itself probably goes back to the dawn of the electric age in Kansas. Anyway, the deal is, if you decide you're not going to renew the franchise, the statute requires you to buy the infrastructure. Price is determined by the district court, state district court, not federal, based on a report of 3 commissioners, one's appointed by the city, one's appointed by the incumbent utility, one's appointed by the court. Only one has to be a professional engineer. And you go through a fairly expedited hearing. One of the interesting things about the Kansas statutes annotated 12-811 process is that severance and reconnection are not part, at least under current law, not part of the damages that the city would pay. There's a 1973 case in the Kansas Supreme Court involving the city of Kyle, where the court characterized the structure of that statute as creating a statutory option for the city that's inherent in every franchise contract. Fascinating. Never seen that anywhere else. And then, of course, there's good old-fashioned eminent domain. There are reasons to use it. There are reasons not to use it. There is also the option that Tom and Scott have both alluded to of constructing your own system from within. That has some advantages. And one thing I always say to people who are embarking on this exercise is, you want to think about whether you're better off spending your money on physical assets as opposed to paying me. I mean, I know this is like against lawyers' interest here, but I'll tell you something. It's a lot more fun for me to go to bond closings than it is to stand in front of you 8 years later and explain why you're still involved in the same lawsuit, right? At the same cost. So, stranded cost was another topic that was mentioned in your RFP. Back in 1996, when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission required owners of transmission to make their systems open to all comers, there was a lot of pushback from the investor-owned utility community, obviously. It said, wait, all of this will cause the generation that we have bought to become worthless. You have to make the customers pay for that if they use our transmission system to escape for, being a creature of regulatory capture most of the time. Said, oh, yes, we must do that, a transitional mechanism for recovery of stranded costs. So there is a formula that FERC uses for stranded costs. One of the big variables in that formula is the reasonable expectation of the length of continued service. And again, I think you may have an advantage here in terms of a relatively short-term franchise. Evergy will respond to that, of course, that, whatever the franchise says, we have the obligation to serve, and our planning horizon's 50 years. I'm
sitting here, man, I love you right now.
You may be getting the impression I've done this before.
Just a tad.
So, yeah, wait till we get to the story about when you asked to see the continuum. That routine is all set out in Title 18 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 35.26, which reads with deceptive simplicity. However, one way to avoid stranded costs is not to use the incumbent utility's transmission system to access your new power supply. So if you have, for example, I don't know whether this is the case or not, if you had a rural electric cooperative, hypothetically, in the neighborhood that had a transmission system that they were willing to let you hook onto or reinforce so that you could hook onto it, so that your power supply did not come over Evergy's transmission system, there is no stranded cost issue. Stranded cost also does not protect against competition. Competition, FERC says, was always inherent in the risk of a utility franchise because there is typically not an undertaking in the franchise that the municipality granting the franchise won't provide a competing service should it see the need. So Those are a couple of seldom explored but significant limiting principles. I have used the build to a different transmission owner in the past, and it works like a charm if you can find one. The other point I was asked to cover was extraterritorial service, and I think that was actually probably my ad. One of the mistakes that people often make in municipalizations is say, well, there's a big industrial customer just on the other side of the city line. If I could serve that customer, I could have lower rates. Problem in Kansas is back in 1976 or so, the investor-owned utilities in the state persuaded the legislature that competition among retail providers was wasteful and everybody ought to have their own clearly delineated service territory. Okay. Well, except for municipalities, because municipalities had always been recognized under Kansas law, having a great degree of autonomy within their own boundaries. But that didn't change. What changes is that in most utility matters in Kansas, or a municipal utility, you have kind of a free fire zone for 3 miles outside your corporate limits, except when it comes to serving customers of another incumbent utility. In that case, your free fire stops at the city limits, okay? You cannot serve outside of your corporate limits without a certificate of convenience and necessity from the Kansas Corporation Commission. The Kansas Corporation Commission, I have actually not seen the Kansas Corporation Commission react to this. Typically, they don't get involved in municipalizations, but it's a good rule of thumb that if a regulator doesn't regulate you, they're going to view you with suspicion. That's been my experience in other jurisdictions. Step over that municipal line and overreach, what happens is you get tangled up in regulatory proceedings you can't get out of. And that is a real drag on your effort. So I'm afraid I've probably strayed from the succinct. As I said, excruciating detail is my life. What we propose to do, by the way, what is ridiculously modest.
Hey now. It was competitive.
What we propose to do, at least for this phase one, is to suggest, first of all, to review these issues and to suggest to the city and the city's policymakers how they might be integrated. Probably several strategies for getting you to the goal of having your own municipal utility. Important to understand the rules. The rules are not simple, but the rules also point the way to paths that can work and that have worked in other contexts. So with that, I thank you for your time. You got any questions?
All right, we've just got a couple more slides here to go through, and then we'll kind of get things wrapped up. Phase 4, as I mentioned, as we're going to get all this information together, Thomas and his group will go out to the field. We'll put together the financial model. We'll have John and his group put together some legal opinions. We'll put those together, and the recommendations come back and present those to you as the phase 1 study. The phase 2 study, if you choose at that time to go forward, is not scoped. It's not included in our proposal at this time, and obviously it will depend on the phase 1 results. What phase 2 would entail would be probably a whole lot more time of Tom and his group coming out here and looking, much more specifically, developing an inventory, for example. What he's going to do for the phase 1, he's going to estimate what those assets are on some sampling. In order to go to the commission, to that group there, you really need to have a very detailed inventory. So there's other elements, obviously, that would go forward in the phase 2 study if that was something that you chose to do. For the project schedule for this phase 1, we estimate about a 4-month schedule. The data acquisition take a couple weeks, and then obviously we're going to have the kickoff meeting tomorrow, developing some of those strategic elements. Fair amount of time developing the financial model. A lot of that is Tom's group out in the field, getting that information together, getting that back to us, and us putting that together into the model, and then preparing those reports and presentations. The budget that we have put together for you in our proposal breaks down between the three companies about like this. About $20,000 for NewGen, about $50,000 for Exponential, and then Duncan and Allen gets the best. So total of about $85,000. That's generally in line with what we've seen, what we bid before. There are some, and we'll talk about some of these projects we've done in the past. There are some municipals that have chosen to not include a legal side and just include the financial and engineering side. I do think it's prudent to look at the legal side, especially given Kansas's unique elements relative to some of the regulatory statutes. Some of those projects we've done together with NewGen and Exponential, the city of Chicago, we just did a study for them that was a preliminary type study looking at that, looking at developing a cash flow model, and have presented that to the city. It was actually unfavorable given the fact that that ComEd, the assets there, we estimated them to be in the $2 to $3 billion range. I mean, we're talking city of Chicago, and doing the financial analysis would have resulted in higher rates. And the city said, well, that doesn't seem very prudent to move forward, and rightfully so. Decorah, Iowa was another one that we just completed about a year and a half ago or so. There was actually a community group that got together to look at that called Decorah Power. They had very clear objectives about what they wanted to achieve, local controls, renewable energy efficiency programs, and the like there. That was very clear about the strategy that they were thinking for. We developed that preliminary feasibility study. Tom and his group did the field assessment, come up with the replacement cost, new, less depreciation. We did the financial analysis. It went to a vote, and it was defeated by 3 votes.
Wow.
3 votes, yeah. And so they felt like they did not have a clear mandate to move forward. Now, is it over with? I don't think so, actually. I think there were some promises made by the incumbent utility that didn't transpire. And so they felt as though they were getting, not being truthful in that. So who knows, they could certainly move forward again. One of the projects that we included in our proposal was the development of the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency. That was actually 12 municipal clients that they own their own distribution system already, but they were getting power supply from the large incumbent utility in the state. We helped them develop a strategic power supply, and we did a fair amount of legal review. There was a fair amount of FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, work there as well. That went online in May 2019 and is up and running now, and providing power to those 12 municipal clients. City of Boulder is probably another one that you guys have heard about in the news. That one, I was the project manager in 2004 on that project. That was one of the first projects that I was involved with. And it had a whole lot of evolutions and starts and stops. And these 2 guys were involved in that beginning roughly, 2010 timeframe. And I want to say they discontinued it. Was it 2019? I can't exactly. There you go. So they spent a lot of money and a lot of effort. I think they ultimately got to their strategic objectives about what they wanted to get to. They were really into renewable power. It's Boulder, Colorado, after all, the Republic of Boulder, as it's called in my state. They just spent 20 years and a lot of money and a lot of taxpayer money. And it was, I suppose they could consider it a success. I don't know how they sort of view it, to tell you the truth. But, the last one that we have here is a project that Tom and I just finished with Core Electric Cooperative in Colorado. They are a co-op. They were looking at acquiring a municipal distribution system for this a city that was served by an investor-owned utility. Tom and his team did a lot of the engineering evaluation, went out and did some of the GIS, some of the mapping, looking at the age and condition, and there were some assets there that I think were installed in 1890 something roughly. And this will look at the severance as well. And essentially what we came up to there was that it was just going to cost too much money to, as Tom mentioned, if they were to acquire the right to serve this municipal entity or acquire the municipal entity, it would become theirs. And those 1894 assets would have to be replaced with 2022 assets, and there was a lot of them. So they basically decided it was not worth moving forward as we looked at that long-range capital plan. And again, that's an element that we will include on a preliminary basis for you guys. That's another element, if you do move forward with phase two, would require a lot more sort of digging and analysis around that, around what that impacts would be. So Duncan and Alan, this is the whole just list of all these different entities that they've involved in, and I'm sure John would be happy to talk to you about any one of those up there. So, some of them anyway, in excruciating detail. So with that, I'll conclude. I was certainly happy to answer any questions about anything we presented, about our approach, about our companies, anything you guys would be interested in hearing. So.
Well, I first of all, I love the phased approach idea. Okay, that's great because this is something is way new to any of us. Okay, I am for the idea, as I kind of mentioned that when I popped in your little discussion you had earlier. And Mr. Clark was clear with what kind of pushback and fights we're going to get out of this. I mean, it was definitely something he made sure we were aware of beforehand. And it doesn't surprise me. What surprised me was that Chicago tried to do that. I grew up in Chicago, and the first thing you start talking about Chicago, I was thinking, "There's no way ComEd was. There's no way." Even though I know that they do have allowed residents now to pick their own power company.
Have that option.
And from what I understand, it was a great idea when that started too. But as I have family that have opted out of ComEd and are sorry they did so now. So that I don't think is working out as well as that was planned either. But yeah, the phased approach is great. It would give us much more, in my mind, comfort to say, okay, we don't need to go from A to C right now. You know, we can go from A to G. Let's see where we're at. And you're right. It may not come back as something that's feasible. I mean, and it also, Mr. Clark said this may not be feasible, but it's in our state statutes. Let's look at it. You know, let's, you know, we all know in town here what kind of reliability Evergy has. And it's sad because, 8 or 10 years ago, they did a bunch of work, updated, you know, feeders, updated the plant. And then lately now in the last 4 or 5 years, it's back to, if there's lightning 300 miles away and you can see it in the sky, your power goes out. Okay. So I don't know what honestly has happened, but I am still all for going forward with this. I'm not sure whose light came on first. So I will just take a guess and say Councilmember Stam.
First, I'm envious of you only losing power twice that you remember, because I lost power twice in one night a couple weeks ago. But I find this interesting. This is fascinating. This is going to be neat to see what it comes back as, but this is going to be neat to see what comes out. Exciting.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
I have one question and one statement. First question is for Mr. Clark. How are we going to pay for this?
Yes.
That's kind of why I let that go. That's why I let Councilmember Stam go first. So.
I figured as much.
Yes, we'll use reserves in our enterprise fund or general fund to cover the costs. You know, with how much we have saved, and we've been so diligent over the course of the last 3 years coming up here on how we're expending funds. That's what we do it for. We do for these opportunities to explore and endeavors. We don't spend frugally of branding or designs of 30, 60,000. We use our money wisely. We save it. As you are aware, during our last audit, we are in a great financial standing. Mr. Smith and Mr. Kane have done a phenomenal job, and all of our department directors have done a phenomenal job with being very diligent in spending. We look at every penny. We do use it as our own, and we watch everything come through. So then we do have money in reserves when it comes to these type of opportunities to explore potentially, life-changing opportunities for our community. This is what your goal is as the council, That's been making everybody's monthly allowances increase, putting more money back in their pocket with spending less in utilities. Our job is to provide phenomenal services for the lowest amount of expenditure possible. So yes, we have the budget for it. We have more than enough. And if we do need to, we'll find it somewhere. You have my word on that.
Don't move.
Yep, I'm
All right.
not going to with you.
So, statement. We still have purple lights.
Not as many.
One right by public safety. I see it every day. It's getting more annoying every day. So there's some ammo for you for
I'm
the.
not, I'm not sure you've heard that story, guys, but Westar went and replaced everything with LED lights, and the manufacturer had a problem. And all our lights were violet.
Well, in the majority of Kansas.
All over Kansas, and they have been. They came and replaced them, but there's a lot that weren't purple when they started that I think are turning purple now. So
they only did the ones that were currently purple, and then the ones that instead of replacing all of them, which we only have about 20 streetlights in total.
No, we don't.
It's so dark in here. I mean, it's like driving. Anyways, so they didn't replace the ones that hadn't turned purple yet, and so in my neighborhood, there's one now that's purple that wasn't, and same, and so this will go on for 10 years probably by the time they replace them all.
So
yes, report them. Good luck.
And just to clarify, this amount is for the tasks 1 through 4 that you outlined on slide 5 or slide 6, excuse me.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And a real quick statement from myself is actually 3 times what you were sleeping during one. For power outages.
Yes, thank you.
Any other council questions? Any other questions, council?
I move to award the bid to New Gen Strategies and Solutions for electrical feasibility studies subject to final contractual terms to be negotiated and approved by the city administrator in an amount not to exceed $85,563.
Second.
I have a motion in a couple seconds. Who
Pick one.
pick one? Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, moving on. Item I, solicit bids to sell accessory structures at 1400 West 77th Street.
Good evening. So looking back, this is the property we purchased in conjunction with the Ford Street project in order to realign the Seneca intersections. There on that property, there's a couple of structures on there that we felt to be worth money, and maybe we can recoup some funds. And what we're bringing to you this evening is just your approval to advertise these structures for bid to sell, just to recoup some of that cost.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
It's a great idea. Only question I have, what happens if nobody wants to tear them down and take them for whatever cost? Or do we tear them down and?
I believe I have a list of 8 people that have contacted me throughout the course of us acquiring the property in March of what year we were supposed to start a gauge? 2016? No, sorry. From March of 2021 when we acquired the property. And so I don't think we'll have an issue. If we do, what we actually did and why it kind of took so long, that Public Works did look at maybe utilizing this structure for city purposes. Of course, I mean, we already bought everything, so let's look to see if we can use it. It wasn't financially feasible for us to move this, to pour what we needed to as far as foundation, stem walls. We looked at salt storage buildings, and we looked at a lot of different opportunities for this building. And it, when it came down to the nuts and bolts of it, it was cheaper for us to buy a new building and construct it ourselves. So that's why it kind of took so long to get these ready to go to sell and solicit for the highest bidder. So I don't think we'll have that problem. If we do, we'll cross that bridge when it comes, and I'm sure that we can figure out how to unscrew a few things and figure it out.
Anybody else?
Motion to approve solicitation of bids to sell accessory structures located at 1400 West 77th Street, Valley Center.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
You,
You're not sitting down now.
I'm not sitting down.
Item J, approved contract for mill and overlay street repairs by Pearson Construction.
So, we came to you a couple meetings ago with the approval to go out for bid. We received 3 different bids for mill and overlay on several streets. I believe there's an updated map in there, Brent. So when the bids came back, actually Pearson came back with the lowest unit cost. And all the bids came back outside of what we anticipated with the ranging of prices of materials right now. And so what we did was we went back, looked at it, removed a couple streets from the projection and brought it down to fit within budget. And so those streets are highlighted there. And what we're asking this evening is for you to approve, to enter into the contract to mill and overlay these streets with Pearson Construction at the price of $292,642.50.
Councilmember Wilson.
Rodney, how much street do we have to remove out of this to get it under budget?
Oh,
Quite a bit.
asking that question. The one question I didn't prepare for, I'm not sure as far as how many feet. We took 2 actual streets, so we took all of Meadow.
Okay.
It goes up there, and then there's that section of Park that we took out.
Yeah, since this is in my district, Meadow is a concern because that stretch right there is getting pretty rough. It's similar to what Sheridan was like 2 years ago.
I understand, sir. We currently have actual tickets open for several places around town to work larger cracks. And we're going to work those with the cold patch mix we have and pack it in with the packer and then put a sealer on top of it. We are trying to concentrate as we move through this rehabilitation strategy, trying to concentrate on pools, trying to concentrate around collectors, and then work our way.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
And with that being said as well, this area that unfortunately we had to take off, that would be a top priority for next year when we look and review, on an annual basis, because things are changing. It's so fluid right now when it comes to pricing, as well as just our roads on what we get for grants and what have you. So, but that section of Meadow and, some folks in this room live off of Meadow. And so we want to make sure that, those are on the higher priority list. So then we focus on one area, get that area resolved and put that on the maintenance schedule. So then when we come back to it and hopefully not until, when we seal it, of course, in a couple of years, but 10 plus years, then, they're all generally in the similar area. Then we're not kind of running over from north side, south side, east side, all over the place without having a plan. And then you're kind of just running around in a circle, kind of like we are with roundabouts.
Yeah, I commend you. Because this is a high traffic area for not only car traffic, but bus traffic as well to the schools. So, but I just know that stretch of Meadows is getting pretty rough too. So thank you.
Just as Brent said, him and Barry are pretty doggone good at finding money now. You don't have any trouble spending it. You just go ahead and find it and we'll go ahead and spend it. So.
Councilmember Anderson.
How much, is there additional cost when they find anything with the base damaged? Is that something that we're looking at, or we just?
We already are. Ron Ekstrom, our infrastructure manager, and I have already discussed some areas where they have some base integrity, and we already have a plan to address that in-house before the mill and overlay option proceeds.
Great, because it's just.
Yeah, we have the equipment.
As well as anyone, it's throwing money away if you don't fix the base.
We have the equipment and we have the material in place to put a base under the areas that need it.
Okay.
And figured we could do that in-house beforehand.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
So the quote that we have doesn't match the amount we're approving, and that's because we took a street off. So right there.
Yeah, that's because we took streets off.
Okay,
So these quotes these were the original bids
For the entire.
for the
plan.
entire thing, the original. And then basically the quotes that were brought in to match that, that's from the bid tab. They were done in unit costs.
Okay,
And so, as I said, Pearson came in with the lowest unit cost.
okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thanks.
Certainly.
Anybody else? We have a
Motion to approve contract with Pearson Construction for mill and overlay repairs in the amount not to exceed $292,642.50 and authorize mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 13, consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries.
Oh, second stand, sorry.
Okay, move on to staff reports. I'm looking over there. He's not there because he's over there because you're not in your seat because Jim was our new
Never mind.
department.
Don't go there.
Fixed it up tonight. Just a couple of very quick items. First, I wanted to announce to everyone that we have successfully completed our annual CRS recertification. So this is the community rating system. Valley Center, we are maintaining our Class 7 status. So what that means is that through various activities that we do, that we are able to offer to our residents a 15% discount on their annual flood insurance premium. So again, we are good for Class 7 for another calendar year. And then secondly, another update on the house on Meridian. The owner did let us know that he is working on removing trees and trash and debris. There has been the dumpster company he is contracting with, they have a backlog. So he's still waiting for his dumpster to be placed on site. That's going to be a 40-foot dumpster to contain the debris from the house. So once that arrives, he's hoping it'll be soon, but he's waiting on that from the contractor that he's hired to bring that dumpster on site. So there is a delay, but he is working on it. So just wanted to provide that update to council tonight as well. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Mr. Owens.
Public safety building, waterfalls and leakage have stopped. With the completion of the waterproofing project up there and all the rainfall we've had to test it out with, they have been very dry and happy inside that building. So yes. Just
Beautiful.
wanted to.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yes.
Chief Newman. Outside of the fact that you don't need an umbrella in your office anymore? Okay. Mr. Eggleston.
We can change it.
Probably the biggest thing is you got the notification. City of Wichita had to issue a boil advisory due to an unexpected change in water quality, turbidity, which is a clearness of the water setting. Consequently, since we get water from the City of Wichita, if they issue a boil advisory, consequently, we're in one. Good. I'm not happy to say, but since we've been involved in this a couple times here shortly, we're pretty good at this and we know how to handle it. And so we've been in contact with several folks at the City of Wichita. We've already touched base with them. They're going to handle all of our tests. So we'll get the bottles from them. They'll complete all of our testing of samples so they can run their labs all night if need be. So we won't be waiting on Meridian Labs schedules. However, just before we come to this meeting, I was in contact with Don Henry, City of Wichita, and he said they were mobilizing for taking their samples. Now, once they get all their samples, they have to take those samples into the lab, run them, and they have to sit for 24 hours to make sure no bacteria grows, as you well know, sir. So, we're probably looking at least tomorrow evening before we know. Their boiler has to be rescinded before we can even start taking. Tomorrow, I will be that pesky kid poking it to the Wichita folks and saying, okay, what's the plan? What's the plan? What's the timeline? Who do I call to get bottles? myself and Wade will be after them all day. This as quickly and as painlessly as possible.
Councilmember Kerstetter has a question. or comment.
Two things. One, can you just get the bottles now? They
Well-
could give them to you because I'm sure they have them, whether they want to or not, is another story. Next thing, I think we should continue discussing our own water treatment facility.
Well, we are discussing.
No, I mean, just bringing it up again.
Okay.
Just, we need to keep it in the forethought. Mr. Clark, you're not up yet. You're at the bottom.
You know, I'm
Chance
passionate.
you get.
I'm passionate about water.
I'll pass it on you next time.
No, I'm passionate about water. Yes, the Public Works Department, Rodney and his staff are working on RFP. We got 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake on that one because there is funding coming down. And so if we can try to get Mr. Kane is looking at every single grant. I mean, he has alerts beyond alerts, looking to try to shave that 6 million. That's just a plan. 6, 7 million, 8 million, maybe, after design, all those things, trying to shave that total cost that we have to issue when it comes to the debt. We want to make sure we are diligent on the taxpayer dollars and also the rates. The rates, that's what justifies and what we base upon our entire base rate per 1,000 gallons is the debt that we're going to have on that plant. And so if we can wait a little bit, a few months, we have been down this road. It has been years looking at this. We're done talking and just sitting and looking at it. It's happening. Now it's just a matter of who's going to pay for it. And I don't want myself to pay for the full plant if we don't have to. Maybe I'm crazy, but if I can get 50 cents off per 1,000 gallons, don't answer that.
How dare you open the door like that for me?
If I can get 50 cents off per 1,000 gallons for the end customer by waiting 3 more months, I'm going to do it. So thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Okay, so there. I'm not sure if I would have had to win.
All right. Thank you, sir. Unless you had anything else.
Well, and then one other thing.
Oh, okay.
So there was during the sewer project over here on Colby, there was a slight incident today. The contractor was loading back up an excavator and the tracks were pretty heavily inundated with clay and mud. And apparently Wade Gaylord, our utilities manager, went straight over there and spoke with them. Apparently when they got it up on the trailer, they were trying to move it or wiggle it or something, get it centered, and it slid off the side of the trailer and fell on its side. So thank heavens, no one was hurt, no injuries, no large damages. They were able to pull that trailer back up pull that excavator back up, right it, get it back on the trailer without a great deal of damage. So thank heavens for that. But I just, you're going to see it. You're going to hear about it. And it's just as easy for me to stand up here and bring it to you.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shear. Mr. Arbuckle. Mr. Smith is not here, so we'll move along to governing body reports. Do you have anything, Mr. Clark?
That's a silly question.
Once in a blue moon, he does it.
How many hours? No. 2 things. 3 things. Pledge drive is coming up for PBS. So telethon is this Thursday. If you're not signed up to volunteer and still interested, I do still have one more spot. This is a brand new building, so you get a behind-the-scenes tour. You should have received the open house invitation and mailboxes and those things to come and tour the new facility. It's really nice. Also, too, it was Councilman Colbert's birthday, June 1st.
That's long ago. That's
happy belated
past.
birthday, and tomorrow is Councilman Evans. So a happy early birthday, Chris. I hope you have a wonderful day. I would sing you happy birthday. The mayor would probably shoot me, and so I tried for your wife as well, and I appreciate the reminder. So happy birthday to you both, and
All righty, moving along to governing body reports. I'd love to say I don't have anything, but I do. We won!
What did we win?
Blood drive.
Dale, stand up. Dale has a shirt.
I almost wore my shirt, but I decided not to. Now with that said, hey, you know, Sedgwick County won. The Red Cross won. The amount of blood that the two cities, 111 pints. That's like 14 gallons. Think about that. 14 gallons of blood. According to the note from the Red Cross, that could have impacted up to 333 lives. Okay. Yeah. I can't thank Mayor John Lerner from Park City enough to going along with this and their governing body. I am so looking forward to next Tuesday morning. I will be, as it stands right now, that will be the day I get to, that the flag, our flag will be raised in front of their city hall. But what a great turnout from both cities. The one number that surprised me when I read this email was the amount of first-time donors. Park City did get more than we did. But there were a total of 15 first-time donors. That is a lot. I remember when I first donated, it was right after 9/11, and man, I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what it was going to be like, and it's a tough decision to make. But once you've done it, it's really not as bad as what you may hear. So, what I'd like to see is maybe a yearly competition started now between our cities, and you know, we got to at least give them a chance to get back at us once, you know. But other than that, yeah, the boil water stuff, that's a problem, but we're going to have a solution to that, I think. So, all right, with that said, I'll move on. Councilmember Stam.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Evans.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Bass.
Nothing from me.
Councilmember Anderson.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gregory.
Nothing.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Wilson.
I'll pass.
And of course, last but not least, Councilmember Colbert.
Just got one or two announcements. The CAD meeting is going to be held next Monday here, and at the same time will be the briefing we talked about earlier this evening. If anybody would like to come over and see what happens on the CAD meetings, please come by, take a look. Other than that, I have no other announcements. If there's no other business before the council, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Second. I have a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Holy crap, 9 o'clock.